Welcome to the Hop Edition podcast, brought to you in association with The Malt Miller, your go-to choice for premium homebrewing ingredients and equipment. Whether you're a beginner starting out or an experienced brewer, The Malt Miller has got you covered. So for top quality products and customer service, jump over to themaltmiller.co.uk and tell them the Hop Edition sent you. We would also like to thank all our Patreons for their continued support with running and developing the pod. If you would like to become a member and gain access to exclusive perks and benefits, head over to patreon.com/the Hop Edition. Now it's time to get this pod started, so crack open a homebrew and enjoy the episode.
Good evening and welcome back to the Hop Edition, the podcast where we obsess over the science, the art and occasional madness of homebrewing. And today we're going to be leaving the safe and predictable world of single strain yeast far behind and venturing deep into the funk. So if you've ever stared at a dusty pellicle and wondered if you're making a beer or breeding a science experiment, this episode is for you. And this evening our guest is Dan Y, the head brewer at Fyne Ales, or Origins. They're doing incredible things in the world of small batch mixed fermentation with their Origins brewing project. So we're going to be skipping the Brettanomyces 101 introduction and getting right into the weeds on the mixed ferm. So whether we're talking turbid mashing, hop aging strategies, dark arts of mitigating THP, and exactly how to manage micro-oxidation. Oh, I'm spinning that one, didn't I? Oxidation? I'm just going to give up on that one. So you end up with complex acidity instead of expensive malt vinegar. So whether you're doing a 60-gallon barrel program in your garage or you're aging sour beer on oak spirals in a glass carboy, Dan's going to drop some serious, actionable knowledge to help you elevate your mixed ferm game. So before we get started with the podcast this evening, I want to say a big thanks to our partner sponsor, the Malt Miller, a premier supplier of all things homebrew. So if you've got homebrew needs, check out themaltmiller.co.uk. And while you're there, don't forget to check out the dedicated Hop Edition recipe section, where you can find a range of beers that are featured on the podcast, including our own creations and some absolute stunners from guests that have been on the podcast before. Big breath. That was a long intro. Dan, how are you?
I'm
and
good.
Could you help me better pronounce oxidation?
Oxygenation.
There you go. You're already adding value, Dan. Thank you. So welcome to the podcast, Dan. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Good. And we always open with the first question, which is, what are you drinking?
So I'm drinking Crotag, but it doesn't look too shiny. So Crotag is one of our wine chimeras, which is a funky new beer style that I've invented. I'm sure we'll go into it in a bit, but yeah, that's the first beer of the evening.
Nice. So we, Dan very kindly curated a selection of Origin beers for us as a drink along. I think many of those listening along live will be I'm getting some abuse in the chat about my mispronunciation already. Those that are listening along will have those beers at home as well. So I appreciate that, Dan. Thanks for organising that for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm particularly interested in finding out what a chimera is. That's a new one on me.
Yeah, so chimera takes its name from the mythical beast of like Greek origin, where it's the head of a lion, tails of a snake, head of a goat as well. So it's kind of all these animals mashed together to make one, and that was kind of the principle for this beer. Was that I used to make a lot of beer wine hybrids that were using grape skins in some way to then make beers that tasted like wines. But being in the Highlands of Scotland, grapes don't grow particularly well up here, if at all. And so we missed making these styles of beer. We wanted to kind of get back into these beer wine hybrids. So the first one we did, we actually managed to get grape skins from Renegade, which is another winery down in London, and shipped them all the way up to Scotland, which is just not sustainable, basically. So we looked at doing it as a more long-term project, and this came about with the first beer we made in the style was called Pink, and it was a mixture of raspberries, gooseberries, and I think there was some grape skins in there. But it's basically just started to try and add in as many elements as possible to try and create a beer that tasted like a wine. So Crow Tag is based around a Chardonnay, and just to kind of, so it's got a mixture of oak barrel aged beer, which you can kind of taste on the back on the finish. It's got a mixture of kind of fresh steel saison, and then it's got pineapple, peach, honeysuckle flowers, and linden flowers in there as well. So yeah, lots of different stuff going on to just try and emulate a wine, basically. So we're not trying to look to create it one-to-one, but we're looking to always create a tribute to that specific grape or style. Yeah.
Just having a little smell and a taste of it now, Dan. What was the kind of inspiration for this beer?
It's normally led by the base beer is normally the starting point, or if there's something, a wine that I've tried that I particularly feel would suit this kind of chimera. But yeah, the base beer was already tasting quite pineapple forwards because we have everything we have on site is mixed fermentation. One of the esters that Brett will present as is pineapple. And so there's already quite a lot of pineapple notes in the beer from the yeast. And so we kind of started steering it down that way because of Chardonnay has lots of pineapple flavor to it. So yeah, and then the oak character as well was playing into that. But,
yeah, I always find that like when you have that sort of oak aged beers, that there is that sort of wine thing that comes across because of how wine is, part of the process is in oak. So yeah, definitely.
I definitely get that pineapple in the sense of when pineapple's sort of on the turn a little bit and starting to ferment a bit, and it gives you that sort of really overripe pineapple smell. I really get that quite strongly off of this. It's very approachable though as well for a wild beer. So
yeah, so the goal with all our wild beers is to try and keep them approachable. I don't really see the point in making. I've kind of gone off Gers and Lambic as a style massively because of I just end up, if I buy a bottle, I then don't know when I'm going to open it because I'm just like, I can't drink a whole bottle by myself anymore.
Yeah.
And so when I was approaching the beer, I didn't want beers that sat on shelves for years and years and years. I want people to actually open them and drink them and enjoy them rather than, holding on for a bottle share that doesn't happen anymore since COVID. So there's no point buying beers for that purpose. But yeah, so all our stuff. And then because our customer base, most of our customer base comes across from the Fyne Ales side of the business. And if you're used to drinking Jarl, you don't want to try and throw some massive acetic Gers at them because of this blows their mind already as it is. So it's baby steps in a way. But yeah, so we try and keep it approachable for that reason.
Yeah, because that's my basic how I found you guys was through. I was in the tap room at the brewery. I think it was during COVID, or there was. So yeah, it was during that sort of period, and I was just getting bottles to take home, sort of thing, and I seen the Origin stuff, and I was like, oh, I'll get some of that as well, and that's what blew my mind because I'd had what's it, the Calvados. I'd managed to have, was it cider Calvados that was aged in oak, and I always remember that being such a strange sort of flavour with oak and really enjoyed. And then when I had the Origins, it was like 2024 or something, or 2023 or something like that. One of the kind of aged ones, and it just blew my mind how good it was. And I think that's what then got me into getting my own oak barrel and stuff like that as well, because I was chasing that sort of oak aged beer, but with with all the funk.
Yeah.
Super drinkable. Yeah.
So I mean, the project's been going since 2017 was the first time they released an Origins beer. And there's been 3 brewers prior to myself. So I'm the 4th brewer behind the project. And I think it's fair to say that the previous 3, it was kind of a side project. So Andreas, who was the first one, he kind of established the brewery and started converting it across from being so the brew site I'm in is the original Fyne Ales brewery. They built a brand new one to keep up with demand. They put in new kit, all singing, all dancing, fancy stuff, and basically just left the old brewery as it was, literally just walked out the doors one day and went, we're on this kit now. And so left everything in situ, and then Andreas took it over and started making wild beers on the old kit. And I'm pretty sure the kit is older than me. It's just a really simple English style brew house, nothing fancy. So Andreas started the project up to put some stuff down in barrels. It then got overtaken with Davide. So Davide had a short stint with Origins, and then Pavel kind of did a lot of work for it as well, and he started to put down a lot of cool ship brews and that sort of stuff. So there's very different signatures between the 3 brewers prior to me, which is nice because when you've got all that stuff in barrel, it gives you different options. And then I've come in and completely changed everything
Nice.
in every possible way.
Because when did you start?
So I started in June, what we're now, 2022, I think it was.
Okay. No, I've just found the photos of when I had my first one. It was like in a Dar, blackcurrant, and it was like, what date is that? That's like November 21. Was when,
So-
yeah. Is it kind of original? The
You-
first one I ever
so you
tried from
coming up
Origins.
Coming up for 4 years there. Then.
It's well, 3. Yeah, it'll be 3 in June, I think.
3 in June. Nice.
Yeah.
And
I got that
what's the kind of direction what's the stamp you've put on it? How do you feel you've sort of taken it?
So
forward?
we've kind of we changed quite well. I've changed quite a bit. So like redesigned all the labels. I pulled out about 75% of the equipment that was in the building because it was just left over from the old brewery, and
Yeah.
it was like 7 open topped FVs, 10 barrel FVs. I was like, I'm never going to use 7 open top FVs because you don't want oxygen ingress, particularly when you're doing mixed ferm stuff over time. So open tops they're great for primary fermentation, but I'm not brewing enough to justify having 7 fermenters in the building. So stripped all them out, and there was quite a few tanks that looked like they may have imploded at some point and someone's blown them back out. So they went to the scrappy because of I was like, I don't feel safe using those. But yeah, and then just it's kind of a lot of it's been more kind of a fundamental approach to how we brew, and moved away from cool shipping. So we don't cool ship anything on site anymore.
Cool.
When Pavel was running it, everything went through the cool ship. Whereas I'm not a big believer that cool ships do what people say they do. So instead, we now have a house cult. We've got 2 house cultures. One is like a complete amalgamation of. But basically, when I started, I went through all the barrel stock, and if something tasted good, I pulled a bit off and put it into a corny cake. And then there's some commercial cultures in there. I have personal strains of yeast as well. So I've isolated yeast from apple flowers before, so they went in. There's some bacteria strains. There's some strains from old bottles that I had from a previous job because I used to work for Pastore down in Cambridge.
Yep.
We had mixed firm down there, so I had a few dregs from those that went into the mix because it's still part of who I am is having worked for them. So blended them into the house culture. So that's the main house culture that does the bulk of everything we do. And then we have a newer second culture that's been going for about a year and a half now. And that brews just a specific beer that's going to be called Brie. We've not released it yet, but it's effectively our approach to a lambic or gers without calling it a lambic or gers because it's completely changed the method of how we brew it. But yeah, so that's that was one of the big changes. And now most of the primary fermentation is done with a white wine yeast as well, which is another kind of step away from what we used to. Yeah.
So instead of like a saison or something like that, you're using white wine yeast.
Yeah. So we're using 71B is the strain that we use. So we do about 75% to 80% of fermentation with that, and then transfer it into a secondary tank where it sits for months with the house culture. because most of what we're doing is pushing towards these wine style beers, so it makes sense to use a wine yeast because it does half the work for you. So it's just
So when I think we're going to be getting on to drinking some saisons later. How do you kind of maintain that saison style? Dan, do you tend to then use kind of coriander and orange peel and stuff like that, or are you using a saison yeast?
We don't tend to use spices in the boil particularly. We have one coming out in the next month or so that we did in collaboration with Burning Sky, and that's the first time we've properly done spices in the boil, because that's what Mark does. So we kind of took a leaf out of his book. But for the most part, it's very little focus on the hot side really. It's just like 20% wheat, rest is Scottish pale. Occasionally I do stupid stuff like 100% wheat, where it's like 70% wheat malt, 30% torrefied. When I'm making gozers, because I fully believe that all gozers should be 100% wheat. But yeah, for the most part, the saison element comes from the house culture, and then it also comes from blending. So if we're not happy with a certain element of a beer, there's always the option of blending stuff in. So we've got over 100 barrels in stock at the moment across the site. They sit outside all year round. We don't keep them in the building because I don't have enough space. So they sit outside in the snow, the rain, lots of rain, which is, for the most part, it works perfectly fine. Occasionally they pop a bung out. So I've had to do rounds every day this week because we've had a heat wave by Scottish standards in that it was above 6 degrees C. So all the bungs started popping out of all of them. I had to go around and sort it. And we've got 100 barrels. I think only 2 of them are vinegar at the moment. So there's no issue with that particularly in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, and then we've got a Michelin star restaurant down the road that's now taking vinegar, so that's not a problem either. And it's saying it's the best vinegar they've ever used.
Yeah.
So it's just like, fine, I've got 400 litres of it, so knock yourselves out.
Little sideline, yeah. You should tell them that stuff's like really premium.
Yeah, stop malting it.
It's
Yeah, we have sort of
Stick a
looked
premium
into,
price tag on it and a shiny label. You're in quids in
we-
there.
yeah, we've looked at it, but we also then need to apply for a new license for it because of vinegar. The way it works is acetobacter eats alcohol and converts it into acetic acid, and so you need to apply to customs to say that you're destroying duty. Because they're basically losing tax money, so they want to know about it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just weird little things you learn from doing
How
stuff
strange.
like this. But yeah.
So you need 2 licenses to make vinegar.
I think you just need the one because if most vinegar makers are buying beer in, they're all based in Burton. It's like Marmite. They're a side industry of Burton. So I can't think what the main vinegar brand is called now, but yeah, they're based in Burton.
Huh. Did not know that.
Sarstons, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I think we've chucked in one of the guys. Thank you for putting the list in the chat on the beers we're going to be drinking during the podcast and the ordering, which is awesome. So we've got the Crow Tag, which we're drinking at the moment. Coo, is it?
Coo. Yep. Coo.
Coo.
Pronounced COO. So
okay.
Coo means dog in Scots Gaelic because of in the background here. This is Jabba. He's one of my Bassets, and the other one's down here, Leia.
Jabba and Leia.
Yeah, yeah. But Jabba actually picked the barrels for that blend. So occasionally I get a bit bored and I go off piste and do weird stuff. And Coo was because Bassets supposedly have the second best nose of any dog, only beaten by bloodhounds. So I tried to see if he would be able to pick barrels and blend barrels. So we literally held him at one end of a table and put 2 samples at the other end, and basically picked whichever one he went strongest to then make up the blend. And yeah, he likes acetic acid, so it took a bit of messing around with to try and get the blend right. But yeah, he picked all the barrels for that.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, we'll find out how good a blender he is in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, he did just pick the barrels. I did the blending. Too, still had to be sellable. So.
Fair dues. And then we got the Nadar Bramble, which I think is kind of a dark fruit.
Yep. So Nadar's kind of like our core range. We don't have a consistent core product. Nadar kind of fills that void in that it's basically similar base beer, but the fruit kind of regularly changes. All the fruit we use is Scottish, and it's all frozen. And we get it in frozen so we can keep making them all year. But yeah, so I think Bramble's the latest one.
The one that was 2021 was Blackcurrant was in it.
Yeah.
Yes, the photo I had.
Blackcurrant was the one previous to this as well, and that's just sold out literally as of this week. So they sell quite well. Blackcurrant's been picking up a few awards as well, which is nice.
Yeah. We actually I noticed that you had I'm checking out on your website a couple of was it international beer awards?
Most of them are CEBA awards, so they're kind of
CEBA.
at a national level. Yeah.
So yeah, congrats for that. Which I think 2 of the beers I saw had awards. Which 2 were? Was it them?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I know Nadar Blackcurrant. They got 2nd place overall in Scottish Keg, and then it won awards in its category. And then I think we've had some free for the bottles as well, but I can't remember them off the top of my head.
Oh, you've been very humble, Dan.
But yeah, I mean, we had Champion Keg Beer Scotland last year as well, which is nice. Yeah,
brilliant. So I mean, you've talked a little bit about this, but we were sort of keen for you to like define what mixed ferm means to Origins.
yeah.
And I think you've kind of talked a bit about the styles that you tend to pursue, and so much as trying to make wine-inspired beers. But how do you define the term mixed ferm? Because I guess maybe like it might be worth some of our audience listeners trying to understand just what that means as well.
Yeah, so I mean, traditionally speaking, mixed fermentation is the use of multiple non-standard brewing strains, basically, of yeast and bacteria. So some people go quite hardline. They say it has to be a mix of both yeast and bacteria. Some people, at one point, Kvake was considered to be mixed fermentation because it was an alternative yeast, but I don't think it is anymore based on the fact that, you know, you can go and pick it up off any homebrew shop's website. And also, Kvake in its original form was multi-strain and bacteria. So, like, I think Ebergarden was 8 yeast strains and 1 bacteria strain, then was isolated down into just 1 yeast, which is madness to me. But and same with Voss. I think Voss had Lactobacillus in the blend as well. But yeah, so for me, it's I don't think it has to be bacteria, because I think if you've got Brett, so for me, it's basically just the use of non-standard brewing yeasts that aren't necessarily commercially available. But yeah, or commercially viable, I should say. But yeah.
Cool. So we thought what would be helpful in terms of just structuring the podcast would be kind of going from effectively kind of almost the beginning of the brewing process and kind of work through it methodically, like chronologically. So we wanted to talk a bit about like work production and recipe design as well. So the first thing I was actually really interested in kind of talking about was whether you guys used like turbid mashing or step mashing in the preparation of your beers.
So we kind of, as for the yeast, there's kind of 2 separate paths in the brew house. I'll talk about first what we do most of the time. So 90% of the production is just normal Origins beers, and 10% is then making Brie, which is a separate procedure. So normal production, I don't do anything crazy in the brew house. we're mashing most of the time at 64 degrees C because I get too impatient to wait for it to heat up any hotter than that because it's slow. So most of the mash is just a single infusion and nice and low. I want the beers to dry out, and I want them to dry out in a sensible timeline rather than having to wait 5-10 years for that to happen. And I don't necessarily see the benefit in waiting 5 years for the type of beers that I'm making. I have got stuff laid down, and I've got old stuff, but for the most part, what we're doing doesn't need the 5 years. So we mash in relatively low to kind of help speed things up a bit. I mean, we're not a quick brewery by any means, but yeah, just to keep things moving. And as I kind of say, it's normally between 70 to 80% Scottish pale malt, and then the rest of it kind of gets, I'd say 60 to 80% Scottish pale, and then the rest is then either wheat, corn, spelt, oats. It just depends on what we're doing. And we don't have a standard recipe. I constantly just keep changing the base every single run we do. And part of that is just so that I can build up a diverse stock of stuff in barrels. Because most of the time we brew about 600 litres to 1,000 litres per run. And 200 litres of each run tends to go into a barrel. So what that means is every time I brew, I create a new random barrel or something that just then works towards creating a diverse portfolio for blending, rather than committing myself just to one beer and then 2 years later going, I don't like this anymore. It gives me some flexibility and gives me the capacity to change what we're doing with much shorter notice than if we were to stick to a hard line kind of procedure. And then boil wise, most stuff only gets boiled for an hour. We have some old hops that are just aging in old coffee Hessian sacks that we've got. So most of the hops I get come from the main brewery. So often they go, oh, we've got 20 kilos of Pacific Gem that we don't need to use. Do you want it? And so they just kind of end up in my unit. Or they go, oh, there's this open bag of hops in the bottom of the freezer that we didn't know was here. Do you want it? And so it's just like, yeah, fine. And it just goes into a brew. I don't necessarily use hops a lot of the time for flavor. I'm kind of just using them for bittering to control the bacteria. And that varies quite a bit as well. So from advice from friends and from experience, people kind of get quite hooked up on using IBUs to control bacteria. And they kind of, over time, they end up cornering themselves because of all bacteria. So for those that don't know, IBUs can actually inhibit bacteria. It doesn't mean it kills bacteria, which is one common thing I hear people say is that it kills the bacteria. It doesn't. Hops aren't antibacterial to the point where they kill bacteria. What they do is they just stop them from working. So that bacteria will still be present in your brew. It just won't be doing anything. But over time, the bacteria, specifically Pediococcus, can become resistant to bitterness and builds up tolerance. So if you keep exposing it to IBUs, it will start to get more and more tolerant. And so a lot of the American breweries who've been making sour beer longer than we have are now having major problems where they're trying to hit like 50 IBUs to kind of stop the Pediococcus from souring too aggressively, because they've just kept building it. And they've then cornered themselves because now they're making these really bitter, sour beers because the Pediococcus has become tolerant. So what I tend to do is kind of do a step profile. So brew 1 would be 5 IBUs, brew 2 would be 10 IBUs, brew 3 would be 15 IBUs, brew 4 would be 20, and then brew 5 would go back down to 5 IBUs and restart the process. Because I find that this helps to kind of reset the Pediococcus, and it kind of builds up this hop tolerance. I know brew 5 is going to be more acidic because I've dropped it, but then next brew, the 10 IBUs will knock it back again, and it seems to kind of reset the process. It's just, I have no science to back that up, but it seems to be working. So, and I'm not ending up with 50 IBUs in bottles. So, yeah. Dan,
I just wanted to kind of, I've heard about the use of aged hops in mixed ferm
Mm.
spawn beers. What is the logic behind using aged hops versus fresh hops?
So, historically speaking, the idea was that by aging hops, you reduce the amount of alpha acids in the hops, but you retain some of the antibacterial properties of hops. So it's about trying to get as much kind of a really high grams per liter in without making the beer excessively bitter. But when you're using old hops, you have to understand that hops age through different phases. So when you first get hops, when you start aging them, they go really skunky. They go like just stink of weed. And then a bit further down the line, they start to smell more kind of like slightly cheesy. Then they go full Parmesan, and then it disappears off and they just smell grassy. And it's the point at which they smell grassy, that's when you want to use them. You can use them when they're stinky. I've used them when they're stinky before to get that stinky flavor. But yeah, most of the time when you're doing that sort of stuff, you're aiming for the grassy stuff. But it can take years. I mean, I can remember talking to the Simply Hops guys, and I think they had the contract for Cantillon in Belgium, and they sent them hops sort of 10 years old, and they sent them back and said they're too fresh because they've been stored in silver bags and they just hadn't aged. So, but then some of the stuff we've got, it's aged really quickly. Some of the stuff we've got is still stinky.
And you, you mentioned putting them in Hessian sacks, so I guess you kind of want the air to get to them.
Yeah.
And then you're just putting them somewhere like dry and...
Yeah, they're just up in the malt store, so they were hanging from the ceiling. But in the end, I just chucked them in the malt store. But when we stick them in the bags, I make sure to kind of break up the blocks, because when we're buying 5 kilo blocks, they are solid blocks of hops, and it takes a bit of work to kind of break them down. It's not like homebrew packs where they're already kind of sort of spread out. So we make sure to kind of break them up, give them a good kicking so that they kind of are very loose in the bag. Because the coffee sacks can hold like 50 kilos of hops, which really ram them in, but we only put 10 kilos in at a time. Just so they've got maximum space, and kind of throw them around a bit in the malt store every now and again to make sure that they're kind of getting even mixed. But yeah.
Interesting.
You can age pellets as well, but it's not as easy because pellets obviously compact to the point where you're not necessarily oxidizing the stuff in the middle, but it is possible if you want to do that.
Is it the use of cheesy hops into the Brie beer? Is that the concept?
Brie only uses British hops in it. But there is a charge of older hops at the start, but there's also a charge of younger hops at the end. So yeah, Brie uses both old and young.
I'd just go back to the mashing question. You said about a majority of your beers, you're just doing a typical, sacrification rest type mash. And you mentioned about, was it Brie that has a different approach?
Yeah.
What are you doing with that?
I'll tell you, I'll just go through Brie completely just so it's done and out of the way. So Brie was basically, when I started at Origins, they were making a beer called Home. So Home was a blend of 3, 2, and 1 year old spontaneous beer that was all cool shipped. So I'm pretty certain that Home was the first Gers made in the UK to proper specifications. But I wasn't involved in it, so I can't say 100% that's what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was. And Home was started because of Inver, which is the Michelin star place down the road. They had spent time out in Belgium and they wanted to have a Gers for their restaurant because they liked it so much. And so they approached Origins and asked Origins to make it for them. But when I started, I didn't quite understand why we were making it because of, I'm not from Belgium. The brewery has no connection to Belgium itself. It's only through this link to this one customer that we have that we were making it. And so I initially scrapped it because I didn't really see the point of making it, and didn't really think that there was a reason for an English guy in Scotland to be making Gers. I just didn't see the point. But but then kind of Origin's end goal has always been to try and represent the Glen a bit more closely than, say, Jarl from Fyne Ales does, because Jarl from Fyne Ales is made with citra hops using pale malt. You could make Jarl anywhere in the world if you were so inclined. And
there's a cask under this bar right now. Literally.
yeah. So, but yeah, anyone. It's a really simple recipe.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it. It's somewhat tied to the yeast strain, but you could pick that up pretty easily if you wanted to. Yeah. It's one of the fountain strains. But yeah, so anyone can make Jarl theoretically if they so wanted. But being where we are in the middle of a Scottish glen, it kind of felt like we were missing a trick by only selling beers that anyone could make, and it didn't really give people a reason to come to Fyne Ales if you were only getting beer that could be brewed anywhere. So Origins was about kind of giving Fyne a bit more of a place on the map, finding its kind of home, kind of finding its feet, and saying to people, this is where we are in the world, this is what Fyne is, and this is what there's cows everywhere, we've got deer herds, we've got like sheep at the moment, so it's a proper working farm, and you wouldn't get that from drinking Jarl. So Origins was then brought in to kind of bring the farm back into Fyne Ales effectively. And so home was part of that. And so having a conversation with Jamie, the MD, he kind of was saying that I kind of want home because a home was kind of what's the right word for it? Magnum opus of Origins, in that it was the thing that represented Origins in its truest form. But I kind of said to him, I was like, but home doesn't do that because you're using a Belgian style, Belgian methods. There's nothing about home other than it was cool shipped here, which even that is debatable as to whether or not that brings in any kind of local bugs or bacteria. So I said, I don't understand why we're doing it. And so instead, Brie was born. So all our beers are named in Scots Gaelic, as you might have picked up by now. Yeah. So Crotag means curlew, I think, the bird. Coo means dog. Nadar means nature. And Brie has like 5 different meanings, but it's all kind of like essence, kind of vibe. It's all that sort of kind of stuff. So it's basically the soul of a place is Brie. So Brie, obviously look towards the Gers and Lambic guys because of what they are doing. Does represent them well. Does represent their area well. But we started with the mash. So I wanted to turbid mash to give us that long fermentation. However, I didn't really want to just do turbid mashing as a standard because of A, my kit's not really built for it, and B, again, it's a Belgian technique that doesn't really have any kind of origins here in the UK.
Can you just briefly explain turbid mashing? I know a couple of people in the chat have sort of question marked that one.
Yeah, so
what's that?
Yeah, so turbid mashing is a way of mashing basically to build up a load of long chain starches. So obviously with normal mashing, you're trying to create lots of short chain sugars that are easily accessible to the yeast. With turbid mashing, you're doing the opposite. You're trying to create lots of unfermentables because of you want the Saccharomyces strains to struggle and not really work, but then Brettanomyces can actually break down the longer chains. And so by creating an unfermentable wort, it gives the Brettanomyces more stuff to work with because it's a slower working yeast. Yeah. So Sac will just snap up and eat whatever's there. And if it becomes too complicated, it just gives up and it just is like, no, I can't be asked. Whereas Brett will just keep plodding along, keep going. And some strains of Brett can even break down cellulose, so they can actually start eating barrels to an extent as well. That's like they're scavengers. They're the current science believes that Brett originates from the rootstock of plants, and so that's why it can break down cellulose, because it literally lives on plant roots, eats that, and just survives in the ground. It's then got disturbed up at some point, got onto grape skins, got into wineries, got into breweries. But yeah, so to create our unfermentable wort, I've got a lot of historical brewing books that date back to like mid 1700s all the way through to mid 1900s, and I found an article within one of these books that was moaning about Arthur Guinness, of obviously Guinness fame. When he first started out, he brewed in London. He didn't brew in Belfast or it was Dublin, isn't it? Yeah. He didn't start in Dublin. He started in London contract brewing. And the guys that were contract brewing for him moaned and said he was a pain in the ass client to deal with because he demanded that all his mashes happen twice. Because what he would do is he would do the first mash at a lower mash temperature, so like your 64. So we do the first mash at 64 degrees C, 100% Scottish pale malt. And then he would do a second mash, and that second mash would be at a much higher temperature to then build in complexity into the beer. So we then do a second mash at about 72 degrees plus, if we can, and that's 30% pale malt and 70% raw Scottish wheat. And so the combination of doing a really high temperature and the raw wheat means that we get loads of starches and unfermentables in that wort that then the Brett can eat through at a later date. So that's how we turbid mash without technically turbid mashing. We just do this two-step process that originates from London, because then that kind of brings it back to being UK based rather than Belgium based. But yeah, so we do that. The beer is only 6%. We're not double mashing for high ABV. It's literally just to get those double complexity.
Is anyone else doing similar stuff to that, Dan, or is that kind of something that you've
not that I know
yourself?
Of.
That's quite unique to your brewery, then, is it?
Yeah,
cool.
It's that one specific beer that we do it for.
Yeah,
because it is an absolute pain in the ass to do. Because it's not practical in any means.
You have to transfer that off, do you, into another kettle and then dig out the mash tun and then restock it, and then do you transfer that
into the same kettle? Yeah,
and at the same kettle, and then mash with that at 72. Right? Okay, wow.
Yeah, so we've only got the one kettle, so we do first mash happens pretty early on in the day. Mash that through, run it off completely, dig out that mash. And it's still pretty hot because I've got to get the second one on, so I've got to dive in while it's still hot. And my mash tun, you have to jump in the thing to dig it out. Yeah. And so it's dig yourself a hole and then out over the top.
Hot boots.
And then then mash in the second one. Basically, from the minute the first mash goes in, the hot liquor tank's on full blast until we can mash in the second. So I think last time I mashed in Brie, I think we hit like 95 degrees C on the mash stripe water, which then is unpleasant because you're then trying to deal with obviously near boiling hot water coming out of your hydrator as well. So it's not the most sensible of methods. But yeah, I had managed to work out how to fully turbid mash on this kit, but it involved like having to bring in second Grundy tanks that had different water temperatures in to then do all the steps and all the rest. And I worked it all out, and then I went, no, I can't. I just don't have the willpower for this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good.
But yeah, so then that goes into the kettle, and that gets boiled for 2 hours. After the 2 hours, chill it back down to 20 degrees, put it into our fermenter. Everything is open fermented for the primary fermentation, and most of the time I try and only half fill the fermenter because it reduces the hydrostatic head pressure.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's something you've encountered before, but the higher the hydrostatic head pressure or pressure in general on a fermenting beer, it reduces and suppresses the esters, which is something that I don't want. I want as many esters as possible in the beers because esters is flavour.
Yep.
So only half fill it, keep it open so there's no ambient pressure in any way whatsoever on it. And with Brie, we have 3 corny kegs that are full of kind of the previous it's full of the Brie culture. So the Brie culture came from basically taking various Erlenmeyer flasks of unfermented wort to the fruit garden. So we've got a fruit garden attached to the brewery as well. So I took it out to the fruit garden and I put black currants into each of the unfermented worts. And I then let them ride for a week, then took that, put it into more wort and kept growing it up. And basically it became apparent that we had 2 cultures that were smelling and tasting good. And then I ran them through a boot camp of sorts to make sure they were safe. So it's just stuff like making sure they got past 3% in a timely manner, making sure that the pH dropped in a sensible way, making sure they could handle IBUs, making sure they can actually ferment more than like 4%, because a lot of wild yeast will either has no flavor or B, won't ferment very far, or C, would just do it so slowly that you risk then having other contaminants in there that would develop faster than the yeast would. So after all this, I then basically came up with one culture that we then put into a corny keg and pitched up from being half a litre to 60 litres. And so then every time we brewed Brie, we pitch in, I'd say about 80% of each of the corny kegs, retain 20% just to make sure we've still got some of the old culture in there. And then we carry out 80% of fermentation in primary fermenter. It can take up to 3 weeks to do that. It's not very fast, but it will get the first bit done and then kind of chug through slowly over the last 5% of it. And once that's happened, we then transfer that brew into a set of butts. So these butts are 500 litre barrels, big oak barrels. They've come from all over. We get them from whiskey makers. We've got them from cider makers. 3 of them are basically my barrels that now move around with me. And one of the barrels we've got is actually dated to 1884. So it's an old as hell barrel. No one else has any use for it because there's no flavor to it anymore because all the tannins have been stripped from being used. I actually believe it was one of the original sherry butts that Johnny Walker would have used for moving sherry between Spain to Scotland. It then would have gone into the whiskey industry, stayed in the whiskey industry for a bit, then went down to Gloucestershire, got used for cider making, and I then brought it back up. So it's 150 years or so that's been in use.
Amazing.
But yeah, so it's still solid, doesn't leak, and there's one from the 90s that just leaks everywhere. So, but yeah, so they then all go into these butts, and these are the only barrels that stay inside, and then they sit in there for years, basically 1 to 3 years. So the first batch of Brie, we literally bottled it 2 weeks ago, and it's due to be released in November. And yeah, each of the barrels also has their own little house cultures going on from previous lives and all the rest of it. So, but yeah, so we got, I think there's 10 of them now. I think we'll probably end up going up to about 15 of those over time.
The 500 litre, yeah. And do they live inside?
Yeah, so they're in the fermentation room on one wall. They're building a little pyramid of them up.
Nice.
Yeah.
What temperature do you try and keep them at?
So the fermentation room is the only place with heating in the building, and we tend to try and keep it in double digits, so it never drops below 10. Whereas the rest of it gets way down, and it's just freezing.
Yeah.
The last 2 months have been brutally cold in there. So, yeah, and it's a farmhouse that was built in, again, I think the early 1800s. There's no insulation on the thing, so it's yeah. When you're trying to do paperwork, it's not fun. So that's
some
Brie.
fingerless gloves then, Dan.
Yeah, no, it's just full gloves. It's the fingers still need protecting.
Master the art of typing on a keyboard with gloves on.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's all digital now, so I can just bugger off home and work from home. But yeah,
craft beer pie.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'll just pull us back to the beers for a second because I think I presume we all went through the first one, which disappeared super quick. I thought that was really quite a nice, easy drinking beer. Now we're on to I've got the wrong bottle.
I'm just going to go and grab mine
now, aren't
quickly.
we? Yeah. I'll give you a chance to grab a beer as well, Dan.
Yep.
So this is the one that we've had Jabba participating in the barrel selection, right? Which is what it says on the back of the bottle here. What do you guys think about the difference between those two beers so far?
Yeah, so there's less of the pineapple, isn't there? It's more oaky sort of character.
Yeah. I think there's more of a woody, complex sort of flavour on this one. Maybe a slightly
more tart.
More of a citrus peel kind of tartness to it.
Yep.
Perhaps.
It's not face peeling sourness, is it? But
no,
definitely more sour.
I mean, both of them are still pretty, very mild as far as sourness goes, but this one's a little bit more than the last one, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think that's what Dan was saying about the dog choosing the one that was quite sour.
More acidic,
more acidic, yeah. We're just saying how this beer's definitely, it's got that slight more tartness to it. It doesn't have as much as the pineapple notes, but Tricky, you're saying it's kind of what do you call it?
Bit more
Citric
citrusy.
Citrusy. Definitely
Yeah.
more.
It's got definitely we mentioned there's more oak as well, so it's kind
Yeah.
of I think it's slightly more drying at the back end, that kind of sort of puckering in a way,
Yeah.
which I think is in part the oak and a little bit of the fact that it's slightly more sour.
The tasting note I always get on this is lavender. I don't know why, but
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
I don't know where it comes from, but I get a really distinct lavender note on it.
Yeah, so
I
you
know
mean
it's
was-
busy.
Yeah.
I was interpreting that more as the sherry cask impression.
Mm.
But it definitely does smell like lavender now you mentioned it.
No, don't want it. Yeah, the problem with blending this was he kept trying to drink all the beer. So it was a very quick game of let him go and then grab him before he managed to get his nose fully in it and drink it all.
Lap it up.
Yeah. I mean, the first day I got him, I picked him up from South Wales and had to drive him all the way back up to Scotland. So I stopped at my parents in Cheltenham, and they always give me weird bottles of beer that they've been given at some point they don't want to drink. So I had a bottle of Old Peculiar, and I wasn't paying attention. His head was straight in it in the first hour of owning him. So yeah, I think he's always destined to be a brewer's dog.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, he's definitely. Yep.
Yeah.
That's interesting. My dog doesn't like beer at all. He's like, nope, not for me.
I used to work in a pub, and we had a guy that would bring his, I can't remember what type of dog it was, but he'd bring it in, and he would buy the dog a can of Guinness every time he came in. And obviously the vet at some point had told him off and said, you've got to stop giving your dog Guinness, it's not good for the dog. And I remember the first month that he tried to take him off the Guinness, the dog would come in and just howl endlessly until he got Guinness. And so he was trying to give him alcohol-free Guinness, and it just wasn't working. The dog was having none of it.
He knows what he likes.
Yeah. He just turned his dog
Fair
into
play.
an alcoholic.
An
By the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Bless him. Oh, that's wild. So, what else can you tell us about this beer, Dan?
It's it's a fairly straightforward saison. The barrel stock is fairly old. Looking at the notes I've got in front of me, I didn't brew any of the beer that he picked as well, which was nice. So all the beer was brewed by someone else, which is another weird quirk of the job. Is that there's been quite a few beers that I've released where I've not actually brewed any of the beer.
Yep.
Because we've had enough stock in barrels that's come through, and yeah, there's a batch of beer coming out later in the year, which is the first beer using stock from every single Origins brewer to date, which is again
that's
nice.
Cool. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
when you're setting out to kind of blend a beer like that, Dan, do you have an idea in mind beforehand, like what you're trying to produce, or is it a little bit of you're just experimenting and then you kind of figure out what the beer is along the way, or how do you go about that?
It depends. There's not really like a golden rule for the blending.
Yeah.
I've always wanted it to be more about kind of creative process than driven by numbers, because I've heard Tilquin. Is it Tilquin? Yeah, Pierre Tilquin famously blends his Gers basically via spreadsheets for the most part. It just doesn't appeal to me at all. So I think he has a degree of creativity about it, but then it's very numbers based over it. Must be this pH, must be this residual sugar level, must be this, must be that. I don't take that approach at all. I basically go through and I do kind of 12 barrel pulls most of the time for when I'm blending stuff across barrels. I do 6 that are beers that I kind of know what they are and know how they're doing. And I then do 6 that I purposely haven't checked in a long time, or I just normally of the 6, maybe 4 would be ones I haven't tasted in a long time, and 2 would be intentionally beers that I think last time I tried them were bad. And so some of this is that when you got beer in barrel for years, it changes over time.
Mhm.
And even with a bad barrel, it's not necessarily bad in a blend. There's something to be said for putting in 10% of a bad beer into a blend, because it can often be like, you may taste it and go, oh, it's too bitter, oh, there's too many tannins, oh, it's too acidic. But when it's only used as a small portion, it can then actually lift or bring in elements that you don't have from the rest of the blend.
Yeah.
And so it's good to always have like some kind of rogue barrels in there, because again, it's just about building options and giving yourself options. And 12 seems to be the sensible number that I can taste and blend without just getting too hammered. So that's also kind of part of it. We did a whiskey barrel aged old ale that was meant to be like 7%, but the Brett just kept going and ended up at 9.7. I had 10 barrels of it. I was trying to blend that, and I must have had like maybe 6 pints of 9.7% beer, and it was a struggle to walk home. Luckily, I'm only at the end of the road, but still, I was just like, wouldn't have been able to drive after that. So yeah, there is a limit to tasting, and not even from an alcohol point of view. I can remember when I was doing one of my first blends at Pastore. We did a coffee and cacao nib porter, mixed fermentation porter, and we're trying different types of coffee in it. And I can remember getting to a point where Ben and Chris, who own Pastore, were like, "We need more coffee. Need more coffee." I was like, "We don't need more coffee. Your palate's gone blind. Like, this is way too much coffee. We put this much in." And they're like, "No, we need more. We need more. We need more." And then the next day, I re-poured the blends that we came up with and put the coffee in. They were like, "Oh, this one's way too strong." I was like, "Yeah, that's the one you picked yesterday." So there's, there's something to be said. And even when I'm blending, I often make up another small batch of the blend that I made yesterday while I'm transferring to check that it's okay and I didn't go palate blind the day before.
Yeah.
So that's something to bear in mind as well. You can't blend absolutely pissed, because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, because sometimes the initial sort of thing when you drink a beer is like it'll be too bitter, and then after you have a few of them, then it kind of dials off, doesn't it? It's how do you want it to present? Do you want it to present to someone that's had a few beers and they're trying this, or is it the first beer that they have sort of thing as well?
Yeah, so Brett from Wild Beer, I did a stint with them really early on in 2015. The way he always taught me was that the first time you sip a beer, your palate is going, "What the fuck are you doing to me?"
Mm-hmm.
The second time, it's adjusting, and by the third sip, you're actually tasting it.
Yeah.
And that's always the challenge with wild beer or sour beer in general, is that people take one sip and they go, "Oh, no, that's too sour." And it's like, no, keep going. Give it 2 more. And then they go to the third, and they're like, "Oh, actually, this is completely manageable." It's like, yeah, it's just palate shock. That's all it is. And the problem as well is that, we're talking about stuff like blackberries and raspberries or coffee or chocolate. People are like, "Oh, they're all really sweet things." It's like, no, they're not. They're all acidic. Modern versions are incredibly sweet, but the bulk of it, like raspberries, blackberries, are sour. They're all tart things when they're found in their natural state. It's just blackberry jam, raspberry jam has an absolute metric ton of sugar added to it. So it's just like, it's trying to get people to realize that their perception doesn't necessarily match what that thing is in real life as well, which is, it can be a challenge. But yeah.
Cool.
And then with blending, we also try and get other people in who are from outside of the beer industry. We do get some, obviously, brewery friends to come down, but it's always interesting to get like winemakers, cider makers, restaurateurs, dogs, because they've all got different palates. And my palate is very specific to making wild beer. That's what it's been developed for, and making gin. But when you present this stuff to winemakers, a lot of them are like, "Whoa, what's wrong with this?" Because they're all taught that Brett is the enemy, like most craft brewers are. So it's interesting to have another fresh pair of eyes, and especially when you're going through barrel stock as well with winemakers, they'll go into much more depth as to and focus on the barrel as opposed to the beer, whereas I focus on the beer rather than the barrel. So they'll go, "Oh, this is Amarone red wine," but they're like, "Oh, but which winery does it come from?" And then they'll break down what they're expecting from that and what they're looking for in an Amarone barrel. And so it's always interesting getting another palate involved, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's smart. That's very smart then. I was interested. You obviously talked about the number of barrels that you've got and getting into the idea of blending and stuff. How do you keep track of it all? And I'm guessing you have to just by rotation be trying these barrels from time to time to be kind of understanding how they develop.
Yeah, so spreadsheets. I've got a master spreadsheet that logs all the barrels that are currently on site. Partly because the finance guy needs it, because obviously we take into account the cost of a barrel into the price of a bottle of beer. Each barrel is costed for free uses from the boring side of things. But so often that means I'm looking at stuff and I'm going, oh, B24 that's in front of me is an Amarone red wine barrel. It has a spontaneous brew that was brewed in February 2021. It was filled on February 2021. It's only had one use for it. And then, so there's we've got all the, I can track every barrel we have on site, what's been in it, when it was filled, whether it's been partially filled or not, the supplier it came from, whether it had any processes done to it when it came on site. So it's all in the spreadsheet. And then there's some stuff that's like highlighted and reserved. So like barrel 12 was reserved for a special beer that we're doing later in the year. Barrel 86 and barrel 92 are vinegar. Barrel 87 has just got dump written on it. So I don't know what's wrong with that one. But I mean, it was just tasting stuff regularly and going through. When I started as well, we dumped about 152 hectolitres of beer. So that's about 15,200 litres in normal metrics, because it just wasn't, it just was bad. And there was stuff in it that was just oxidized, or it had major problems that we couldn't fix, basically. And also, it was getting ridiculous, the amount of barrels we had on site. So we're currently in a position of I'm not buying any new barrels because of I have too many. We still got some new. The latest ones that came on site were November this year, but they're loaners from Glasgow Distillery. So we've got 3 barrels from Glasgow Distillery that we've put beer in. We're then going to give the barrels back to the distillery. They're going to put whiskey back into those barrels.
Yeah. And
then they're going to send me 3 more barrels. We put more beer into the new barrels and basically release a side-by-side of the beer, the whiskey that's aged in the beer barrels with the beer that's been aged in the whiskey barrels. It's the goal. But that's subject to it working properly. But and then
that's very cool.
Yeah.
I've heard of that before, and it works really well.
Dan, what did you do with all the barrels that you dumped all the 15 hectolitre beer from?
So
did you keep them and refill them?
Yeah, I mean, they've all been kept. They've been turned into various promotional merchandise for the brewery, or I've got a couple of my gardener's water butts. They've been used about the place for various projects, but
but not for beer.
No, because I just didn't like the cultures in a lot of the spontaneous stuff, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
It just, you could tell it was yeast culture and there was too much risk. It just wasn't worth the risk of putting more beer in it to go bad.
Yeah.
I've had 1 or 2 recently that the barrel's still quite young. It was only first fill, so we've been doing some experiments as to whether or not we can steam purge them and hot rinse them and reintroduce culture to them to see whether or not we can claim them back. Because the cultures themselves weren't bad, they were just quite acetic. So we're trying to see if we can knock back some of the aceto back to the character. We still want some. Acetic acid is good in blends. I really like it in blends, but I just keep it at a really low level because for me, acetic acid is like the fruitiest acid you can get. So, like citric acid tastes like citrus. Lactic is really clean. The bulk of our acidity that we have in our beers is lactic acid. We get some malic acid from the fruits, but then that undergoes malolactic fermentation because of the bacteria and yeast that we use, which converts it from malic acid into lactic acid. And then we've got acetic acid, which when I'm doing anything with heavy fruits, be it like, raspberries, blackberries, or whatever like that, we try and include some acetic acid in there to help build on that fruit character. but there's no hard and fast rule as to whenever we use raspberries, we use 10% acetic acid. It's just kind of, it's still done by tasting and yeah.
And what do you mean by acetic acid is the fruitiest acid? What closest fruit would it be associated with?
I don't. I mean, it's vinegar at the end of the day. Acetic acid is vinegar. And I mean, if you think about, say, shrubs, which are kind of have had a bit of a revival recently, the acid they're using for shrubs isn't lactic acid; it is vinegar because it is fruitier. I don't know off the top of my head what fruit I'd compare it to. But just try it. Take a let's say a Pastoria Vault City quick soured beer, and just put in a few drops of vinegar, and you'll see what I mean. Take a really fruit forward sour and just put some vinegar in it, and you'll be surprised at the difference it will make.
Really? What, it will just start to push more of the fruit?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it'll hit a point where it does turn to vinegar, but
right. Yeah.
there is a sweet spot there, and it's interesting just to try it from a illustrating a point.
Yeah, that's a really interesting little experiment for people to try. That's awesome.
Funny you should mention that, especially with the reference to your Michelin star kitchen taking vinegar off of you before, because I've watched a few videos of I think I might have heard it on one of the fallow videos or something like that, but they did a whole thing about talking about how important vinegar is in cooking as a flavour enhancer for similar sorts of reasons, just to sort of bring out, brighter flavours and stuff like that. So, yeah, obviously that's something that can function in the context of beers and sour beers as well, potentially.
And salt is another one that we use occasionally as well. So salt can really boost the fruitiness of stuff as well. So it's not unheard of to put a small amount of salt into a blend to kind of push. But it's just, the little tips and tricks you pick up with after doing this for as long as I've been doing it, because I think I've been doing this over 10 years now. Yeah. But yeah, so it's just there's little tricks I have like that.
Because we've used salt to try and help lower bitterness as well. It's like a kind of anti-bitterness sort of thing. Especially like kind of low ABV beers, where it can be too overpowering from bitterness sort of thing, and you just add plenty of salt in. It's good. Makes it super drinkable.
So I can't remember what the other beers were in there. So Ebisque, which is one of the beers for later, we did that with the Michelin Star restaurant. So that's a collaboration with them, and that was a case of we added quite a substantial amount of salt to that to kind of boost the fruitiness of the hibiscus in that beer, and also because we knew that beer was going to be drunk in the restaurant alongside food. So that one's been a funny one because some people just haven't understood the beer necessarily. Maybe that's on me for not describing it right. But that is very much a beer for pairing with food. Even if you just got a piece of toast, even if you have a piece of toast with it, it changes the flavour of that beer so much. And so it's because one of those ones, if you drink it and you go, I don't really get this, honestly, just have it with a meal and it will make sense. But yeah.
I might save that one then. Although I did bring some crisps up for the after party, so I could always some nice. It might be salt and vinegar actually.
I've got hickory smoked nuts.
No, lightly sea salted.
Posh nuts.
Posh nuts.
We all know Andy's got posh nuts.
Cool.
I'm having some difficulty with my lighting this evening, which is slightly annoying. So
I thought you were going for the dramatic.
Sat in the dark.
Yeah.
But
he's just looking for the Bond villain kind of vibe.
It's probably better than me flicking the light. That would do. I'll just put the light on.
Nice.
Nice. So we talked a bit about pitching strategies, and you talking down about the majority of what you're producing. Your primary fermentation is with a wine yeast. And then are you using, you said, one or two house cultures was one Brie and one was kind of everything else, or
Yeah, so one is Brie and one is, we call it the mother beer or house culture. Yeah. And the way that runs is that so every time when we're brewing a standard beer, as long as the base beer isn't something too weird like a dark beer, what happens is we transfer, let's say it's 1,000 litre brew, we'll transfer 900 litres into the primary fermentation, pitch 71B into that, and the last 100 litres goes into the mother beer tank, which has the house culture in. And when we then transfer it off of primary fermentation into the secondary tank, we then add 100 litres from the mother beer across with it. So it's almost like a sourdough. Every time we're pulling from it, we're putting a bit back in, and it's constantly evolving.
Is that like a Solera?
Exactly. Yeah. Solera is kind of a little bit different because you're kind of pulling from year 3, refilling from year 2, refilling from year 1, and put the new stuff into year 1. So it's kind of like Solera is more about achieving consistency through the least amount of blending possible, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, it's more like a mother beer. So it's changed a lot from what it was when first started using it, but then that's kind of to be expected, and it seems to be fitting better now with the environment that it's in than it did before. So that's kind of the goal. It's just for it to kind of be happy. I did have to kind of nuke it at one point because it was being particularly PDO forwards and causing me all sorts of problems. So I pulled, there's about 1,000 litres of it in that tank. I pulled 800 litres out and basically put 800 litres of new fresh wort in and kind of knocked it back a bit because it was just getting too aggressive. So occasionally we do stuff like that.
In what sense? What was the PDO doing?
So PDO has a unique quirk in that it can make beers sick or ropey.
Oh yeah.
Which basically turns the beer to the consistency of honey.
Right.
So PDO has this built-in defense mechanism where it takes simple sugars and jams them together inside the cell and then spits them back out. And what this basically means is that stuff like Saccharomyces then can't access those sugars, but Pediococcus can. So when all the simple sugars run out, Pediococcus can still stay alive because it can start pulling in these complicated sugars and breaking them back down and eating them. So when this happens, you basically can't do anything as a brewer about it. You just got to wait. And the two things that break it down are either Pediococcus itself or Brettanomyces will come along and break it down. So when we had the big issues, we tried to brew up some Brett pitches to kind of encourage the amount of Brettanomyces in there and hopefully break it down faster. I don't think it did much, but it just constantly stirring up the tanks to make sure that it was all consistent because of it got to one point I was like, it's gone, it stopped, it's disappeared, the beer's gone back to normal. Pulled a bit more off the tank and it's got a lump of goo through, and it was just like, right, so it's just in clumps at the moment, and so yeah, just bubbling nitrogen through the bottom to try and agitate it and get it all mixed up again. But yeah, that was every tank was gooey for about 3 months. I couldn't do anything about it.
Oh no!
Which is
and then it just sorted itself out.
Yep, and then one day I came in and magically everything was back to normal.
Weird.
I mean, there's a little bit you could sort of see it was changing and it was getting less gloopy. But at its worst, I literally opened the bottom of the tank and it just kind of went, and I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen examples of people pouring like ropey beers from bowls and just it being obviously super thick. But knew very little about what caused it, so that's really interesting.
Yeah, so we started to kind of factor that in now with our production schedule. So I'm currently in the process of fruiting beer that's going to be released in January 2027. So I'm kind of planning a year ahead now with my releases. As I say, the beer we bottled last week is being released in November, so we're trying to we're a little bit behind schedule really, but we're trying to get a decent amount of time of it being in bottle before it even gets to you guys to make sure that if it goes ropey, it happens on site with us and we can kind of supervise it rather than trying to do a recall or telling people, oh, just sit there and wait on it. I'm not really a big fan of the kind of idea of sending beer out that's not in a stable state or ready for consumers. So I'd rather it messed up with me and I sit on it for another 3 months, 4 months, than send it out and it goes wrong later down the line. But yeah, so production schedules are getting longer and longer. So kind of average brew. So say Nadar Bramble would have been brew day, about a week in primary fermentation. Then I had 2 months in steel, 2 months on fruit, 3 months on bottle minimum. If it goes into barrel, it gets a minimum of 2 months in barrel. So if it's just a simple barrel aged saison, it would be week primary, 2 months steel, 2 months barrel. Then it could be 2 months fruit, 3 months bottle. So the schedules are long, like compared to Gal, which is brew and within a week is in a cask. Like, so it's a bit different my planning versus their planning. I'm more planning like a distiller than I am a brewer, which is fun.
Somewhere in between, yeah. No, that's very cool. Whilst we did some research for this podcast, Dad, I came across something called tetrahydropyridine, which I hadn't heard of before, but apparently is quite a headache for mixed fermentation beers. Is that something you have come across in the past? Talk to us a bit about what it is and what you can expect as a home brewer trying to do mixed fermentation beers. Are you likely to run into it, and what can you do about it?
So I haven't heard the chemical name for it in a long time. Most people call it THP or mouse are the two names that it's most known by. Winemakers will call it mouse. Brewers tend to call it THP. So THP is basically formed by Brettanomyces in the presence of oxygen. So it's just a side effect of Brettanomyces coming in contact with oxygen. It will make THP and push it out of the cells. And to me, THP smells and tastes like, supposedly you're not meant to be able to taste it, but I'm 100% sure I can. It smells like a mouse has peed on a Cheerio. That is the distinct smell and taste I get for it. We don't see it. We did back when I was at Pastoria. We did a homebrew competition with the malt miller to do mixed fermentation bits. I was expecting to see it in 50% of the beers that were submitted to us. There was only one beer out of the 100+ entries that we got that had THP in it. And I can remember Reiki saying, he's like, oh, I don't know what THP is. I don't know what it smells and tastes like. I've no idea what it is. And I went, right, here, this beer, just drink this beer. That is THP. And he went, oh, yeah, I get what you're saying now. And then I think he messaged me a bit later on to say, you've ruined wild beers for me because that's all I can smell and taste. It is one of those things that unless someone points it out to you, I don't think you would necessarily recognize it.
Yeah.
But again, it's the thing of, it's just a time game. So Brett, although it produces THP, will also break down THP, and it's just a matter of time. We do get THP in all our bottles, but we tend to only see it for the first 2 weeks, and then it ages out. Sometimes it appears longer. So one of the beers we've got on sale at the moment, Saison, which is the same base beer as Crotag, apart from we used abstracts. Have you heard of abstracts before? They're like a liquid hop extract. I would say they're one of the best on the market. They're incredible. They don't have any weird chemical smells or taste to them, and they're liquid, so you literally put it in the day that you're packaging and mix it in, and it's just super bright. It's like a dry hop effectively, but I don't have the kit to handle dry hopping my beers because it's old cask equipment. So instead, abstracts allow me to kind of dry hop saisons and make beer de cuvées. So yeah, we put that in, and for some reason, I don't know whether it was the abstracts that caused it, but the THP would hung around for literally 3 months and wouldn't move, wouldn't shift. but it's finally gone now, so it's good. But that's another reason why we do that 3-month aging in bottles, is just to make sure that everything's sorted before it leaves the site. Make sure the carbonation's there, which tends to happen by the end of month 1. Make sure the THP is gone, which is normally week 2, and then make sure there's no ropiness, which after 3 months you're normally safe. But yeah.
That's it. If it tastes bad, just stage it, innit?
Yeah. It's, the thing with mixed ferm is you have to be patient. It's just 9 times out of 10, just waiting will solve the problem. That's kind of one thing I've learned. And with the barrels, the reason I've got the log is because of the minute I put something in a barrel, I just try and forget about it. I just try and wipe it from my mind, and otherwise what happens is you become hyper fixated on this one barrel, and you go, I put this into the barrel, this is what it's going to do in 5 years, this is what we're going to do, 3 months, 2 months, 5 months, etc. And you just get obsessed with this one barrel, and then you completely lose track of what you're doing. And so that's why I put it all into a spreadsheet. Then it means I can just purge it from my mind, not think about it, and then when I come to blending days, go, I want these 6, and I don't know what that one is, don't know what that is, don't know what that is, and just pull them. But yeah. And if you're tasting mixed ferm beer as well, don't do it every day, don't do it every week, do it once a month at most, because it's going to change so much over that time. And if you're drinking it every day, you won't notice the shifts, because although it is changing, the shifts aren't as dramatic as, say, the difference between a day 1 dry hop beer and a day 5 dry hop beer. You've got to give it that time, and you've got to just kind of leave it alone. So when I first started making these beers, I wasn't doing it at a professional level. So I was home brewing for quite a few years, but while commercial brewing. So my kind of backstory is that I went to university, did photography at university, which is actually really helpful from a design, Instagram perspective and all the rest of it. Came out of that, worked in a pub, didn't want to work in pubs the rest of my life, kind of found a job at a local brewery making cask beer. So I was doing that, and then worked for a gin distillery where I used the fancy rotary evaporator stills. Did that for a few years, and then went back into brewing. And kind of in the middle of that, I did a stint in wild beer, as I said. Discovered sours, mixed fermentation really early on. Really got into it, and I worked for a brewery in Buckinghamshire, like a big regional brewery, and they're just making normal kind of craft beer, and I was losing focus. I didn't want to do it anymore. It became boring to me because it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I set up a shed in the garden. I started making mixed ferm beers and saisons exclusively in the shed. And yeah, had loads of stuff on the go and kept that going through that job, through when I went for double barreled, and then eventually when I got the job at Pastore, that's when I gave it up, because I was kind of doing it for work anyway. So didn't need the shed anymore. But yeah. The best thing I could recommend is, if you're looking at doing mixed ferm beer, is to have basically 1 20-litre fermenter, and then get 4 demijohns, and basically take the same 20 litres of beer, do your kind of primary, secondary fermentation in that one tank, then split it into your demijohns, put your different fruit in each of the demijohns, and then brew your next batch into the fermenter. Because the beers take so long, I think one of the errors that people make when homebrewing it is they commit to, I'm going to do 1 fermenter, a mixed ferm beer. It's going to take 4 months, and then I'm going to have 20 litres of it. And there's so much stuff that could go wrong that you almost want to split it into these 4 smaller batches, and then it gives you 4 opportunities to try. Blackberries in that one, raspberries in that one, 1 on its own, 1 with dry hop. And then it means that if one of those 4 fail, it's not the end of the world, because you've still got the other 3. And at the end of the 4 months, you've got 5 different beers to try, rather than being committed to just having 1. So that's one thing that helped keep me interested in it, was by doing these smaller batches. And you can get little brew buckets at like 5 litres as well. So that's what I used to do. I just used to have like shelves just covered in demijohns of various things. But just make sure you're making notes as well. Just
Would that be with just like wild yeast off of the fruit itself, or would you been adding bugs into it as well?
Yeah, some of it was commercial pitches, some of it was harvesting yeast.
Okay.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff.
How again, as we've got you on the home brewing aspect of it at the minute, what's a good way for people to try and sort of harvest wild yeast on a DIY sort of level?
Could you pour it straight from the bottle?
You could, yeah. All my bottles are, just as a warning, I use EC1118, which is champagne yeast, to help prime the bottles. There is still wild cultures in all of my bottles. EC1118 is, however, a killer strain. So certain wine yeasts have a killer ability. I don't know if you've encountered this before. It's unique to wine strains. So if a wine yeast is killer, what it means is it emits a compound that kills other Saccharomyces strains. So if you were to repitch my dregs, you would be getting champagne yeast plus Brett plus lacto plus pediococcus. You wouldn't get my sac strains because they've been killed by the champagne yeast.
That's all right though.
Okay.
So you would do, but you could still do primary with your own sac strain, and then
and then pitch
use
my
that
bottle.
as just pitch your bottle in secondary.
Yep. Yeah.
Right, cool. Okay.
Yeah. But just as a full disclosure. So just to loop back a little bit, the reason we use EC1118 is because of THP. So as I mentioned, THP is formed in the presence of oxygen by Brett. EC1118 is really fast at fermenting. So by using that as my conditioning yeast, what happens is it sucks up all the oxygen super quick. And it means we get much less THP build up at the start than if we don't use it, because otherwise the wild yeast is too slow to pick up the priming sugar. And so EC1118, A, gives us super quick carbonation, and B, reduces the amount of oxygen left in the bottles.
So you do prime it as well?
Yeah, it's all primed with just sugar at the moment.
How do you do that with your commercial scale?
So I've got a Grundy tank that's got just got a gas fitting on the top that we can take off. So transfer everything into the Grundy tank. We've got nitrogen generation on site. So I just bubble nitrogen through the bottom. I then measure out the sugar. So I've got a little device called a carbodoseur. It's a French thing. And it's literally like a tube that goes down into a measuring tube. You put 100 ml of beer in it, put this tube in, put your thumb over the end and shake it and let go, and it spurts beer out the top. And the amount of beer it displaces tells you the residual level of CO2 that's in the beer. It's normally about 0.9 volumes. As a rough rule, 0.9 is a good base to work from.
Yeah.
But this just gives me super accurate readings. There are other devices like C boxes, but they're all not that great below 1 volume, which is where most wild beer tends to be. So Carbodoseur is really accurate, really basic little kit. I recommend it to all the wild brewers that I encounter. It's really helped with creating consistent carbonation across our batches. Q went a little bit further than I wanted, but it's a saison, so it's fine. But yeah, so we do that first. Check the residual CO2. As I say, tends to be 0.9. And then we literally use dextrose because it's really easy to dissolve. Weigh that out, and then I go into the main brewery and I just steal the hot water, and I basically use as little water as humanly possible to dissolve the sugar. It's not like a set ratio. I literally just do it by eye, stirring, dissolve it. And then once I've done that, by the time I bring that bucket over to the main brewery, it's cooled down enough, and I literally just sprinkle the EC1118 on the top, leave it alone for 5 minutes, go and get the kegs in or whatever for packaging. By the time I come back, it's then krausened onto the top, effectively, or bloomed. And
really,
yeah, it's not a like full krausen; it's just kind of rehydrated to the top.
Yeah.
I then stir that up, and I pour it into the top of the tank while I'm bubbling air through the bottom, so that it mixes it all up as we're doing it. But yeah, so that's how we. That's how we
nitrogen in it. Yeah.
Do you have a bottling line?
Yeah, it's a 6-head filler. It's manual. So we put the bottles on, it fills them up, you take them off, give them to the next guy, and the next guy caps them, dunks them in water to make sure we don't get any kind of mold around the tops of them. And then they go into it's a cage for wine bottles, so we put them in, which allows them to free drain. Then we put them into the warm room, sit in the warm room for 3 months, and then they come out of the warm room, and I've got a labeling machine that I then label them all on.
Yeah.
So most of the time, 95% of Origin's production is just me. The only time I really get help is
bottling.
occasionally with labeling, and also I need a second person for capping. And occasionally people help me in the garden, but not very often.
Yeah, because you can follow you on Instagram. You put up posts of like your stories, like what you're up to out in the garden, or whatever. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, so the fruit garden is 200 meters from the main brewery. We've got over 100 blackcurrant plants in the ground. We've got gooseberries in the ground. We've got rhubarb in the ground. We're trying to expand it out at the moment. We've got red and white currants. The big job for next year is we're going to rip out all of the black currants and replace them with white currants, because of I can buy black currants about £2.50 a kilo, whereas white currants are £20 a kilo.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to grow,
Your
and I
own
can't even get
currants,
enough
yeah.
to use them commercially because there's not enough people growing them. So we might as well grow white currants because they're more expensive and I can't get hold of them, than to grow something I could easily pick up.
Yeah.
And I prefer the flavour of the white currants as well, which is also a big part of it. But yeah. And then we'd be looking at other stuff to grow, what based on our area, what we could bring back in, looking to get some more fruit trees in the glen in general. Hoping to get honeybees in this year as well. Let's keep some hives. And potentially use that for priming sugar, possibly. But yeah, so we'll see.
What about hops? You grown hops, Dan?
They don't grow. They struggle so much. I've got a hop plant at the front of the house, and it just gets downy mildew every year. It's just too wet for them.
Yeah.
And I don't even use that many of them anyway, so it's kind of, yeah. Same with, we can't grow barley up here either. It's just too wet. It's just not the conditions for it.
West Highlands of Scotland, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Yeah, we don't grow much.
It's not like Fife. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was interested in you mentioned about, there were a few of the beers that you kind of talked about using terpenes, which is the bit coming back to that abstract hops bit. I was just checking out their website, really interesting. So I think what they're getting into is trying to isolate hydrocarbons or terpenes.
Yeah, so all flavors made up of these core building blocks, basically.
Yeah.
So you get like pinene, alpha pinene, beta pinene. You get limonene. You get I can't remember the rest of them. I used to know them all from my gin distilling days.
Myrcene.
Yeah, myrcene. And basically what they're doing is they're analyzing the profiles of hops and then rebuilding those profiles. But one of the more interesting things they're doing now is with fruit. So we use their passion fruit abstracts in something, in a wine hybrid, because I needed passion fruit flavor for the beer because it was inspired by like Georgian amber wine. I needed that specific flavor, but I didn't really want to buy passion fruits from Glasgow Market, because occasionally we've got a guy that will go to Glasgow Market for us and pick up fresh fruit if it's something that we can't get hold of easily. And I didn't want to get passion fruits because they would have had to be flown in from God knows where, to then sit in the market and then brought up here. And I was just like, this just isn't sustainable for us to do. And Fyne as a whole is on quite a big sustainability drive at the moment. And it just didn't match Origins as a brand. So I was trying to look at options, and the abstracts guys were like, we've got passion fruit. And I was like, is it made from passion fruits? And they're like, no. It's made from hops, citrus peels left over from juicing, and lavender is what they were using to make it. But because they basically isolated out the profile of a passion fruit into its very core building blocks of flavor, they then took those building blocks from elsewhere, from more sustainable sources, rebuilt passion fruit from the ground up, and then I shipped 118 mil of liquid from America to here rather than 4 boxes of passion fruits. So it just makes sense from a sustainability.
That just blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that we're like, in this day and age, we're just rebuilding the exact flavour of something.
I mean, it's not perfect, and it's like, it's more, it gives you more aroma presence than it does flavour presence. So I'd say it's like 60% aroma, 40% flavour. So it's never going to be a one-to-one pairing. With the hop stuff, they recommend like replacing 20% of your dry hop with it, because it reduces cost and it makes it a bit more sustainable than if you were to just use the full dry hop, or something like. Don't quote me on that. I think it's something like that. But yeah, so it's interesting.
Yeah, we're pretty familiar, I think, actually, with kind of flowable liquid hop products now. They've been sort of on the market for a few years, and I think pretty commonplace actually, kind of home brewing usage as well as commercial usage. What I found kind of interesting, actually, having a look on the Abstract Hops website, was they actually had a lot of Yakima Chief, like proprietary hop brands or hop types. So they got like Citra, Crush, Mosaic. So they're
Yeah.
It was interesting. I don't know if there's some kind of link or whether they're.
Yeah, so originally it was like you had to. It was a bit of a puzzle because they used like 3-letter codes to distinguish what the hops were. Because I don't think they were allowed to use the brand names, but I think they're collaborating with each other now. So the one we used in Seisan was Nectaron, which is really good.
Yeah. So, but it appears that you can only get them from the States, and you've got to fly them over. I think the cheapest price is $89 for 118 mils.
They do. I mean, we have got little mini sample ones, but I don't know whether that's just because of we know the guys.
Yeah, I think you can get free samples.
I
but
don't think they're out on the homebrew market.
I think you need a.
They're only about 20 quid each for a little one, so I think that's what we pay. You just need to get yourself an account with. I think it's Murphy's we buy them from. But,
right. Okay.
I think.
Yeah, a bit tricky to do when you're a home brewer. But that piqued my interest. Actually,
well, just moan at Malt Miller. I'm
Soccer.
sure Malt Miller can get
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
maybe. So, I think there was sort of final question we had on kind of microbe management and stuff, and it was really just at like homebrew scale about oxygen ingress and stuff. Is there any sort of advice you'd give to homebrewers about just how to avoid turning beer into vinegar or avoiding the THP problem or whatever?
Yeah, so I mean, do your primary fermentation in plastic's not a problem, but the reason why I said demijohns is that demijohns are glass and you don't get the O2 pickup that you would do if you were to age it in plastic for 2 months. The same issue kind of goes for barrels as well, that the smaller the barrel, the more surface area to volume ratio you have in contact with the liquid. So it should age, you'll get more wood flavor at a faster rate if you age it in a smaller barrel. So that's just something to be mindful of. I have seen them now. They started doing them for moonshiners where they're like steel tubs. I think they're like the pressure pot tub.
They've got
a wood front on them.
Yeah.
So I've not used those, but they've been piquing my interest. But yeah, apparently you can make them yourself as well.
What size are your barrels, Dan?
So most of mine are either bourbon specification, which is 190 to 200 liters, or white wine, which are 225. Then I've got the butts, which are 500. I tend not to avoid buying anything that's not 225 or 190 because it's just a pain if you've got them on a rack with something else. And so I've got new like straps for the forklift, so I can then lift specific barrels out, and I've been restacking them all because it was just got to a point where everything was bloody wonky on the racks, and then I was trying to lift it with the forklift, and then where they're stacked is not forklift accessible, and I was just like, and it was always middle of summer when the the courtyard's full of people. I'm having to move like 10 tables out the way and try and do it, but there's like all these little kids watching me, and I'm like, my instinct is just to start swearing at this forklift because the forklift itself isn't great, and I'm just looking around like, there's kids here, like,
who am I gonna kill? Try and avoid.
But yeah, so I try now and pair them up, or when I'm buying barrels, I buy 2 at a time rather than 1 at a time, so that they're basically matching. I know they come from the same place; they'll be roughly the same size. It's a new policy that I've implemented because I'm just fed up with wonky barrels. But yeah,
Where'd you get your barrels from?
so we work with barrel brokers basically. So who's what they called? Now Oak is who we use now. NAO Oak. We were using a Portuguese company because the brewer prior to me was Portuguese, so I guess he had a contact there.
Yeah,
but the barrels, they were crap.
Right, okay.
When I buy a barrel for a specific flavor. So if I buy, say, a apple brandy barrel, I want it to taste like apple brandy.
Yep.
Whereas the guy before me he would then, whenever the barrels came on site, he would steam them for like 2 minutes, cold rinse them for 3 minutes, hot rinse them for 3 minutes. I was like,
take out all the flavour.
Yeah, I was like, what's the point? Why are you spending £600 on a barrel if you then strip all the flavour out of it? I was like, if you want flavourless barrels, just go to a whiskey distillery. They've got loads of dead wood. And I mean, at the moment, because the whiskey industry is on a downturn, if you want Scotch whiskey barrels, all you need to do is drive to a Scotch distillery and say, do you have any barrels spare? And they'll give you barrels for free. Like, because they've got so many. I know
Good tip.
the master distiller over Arran, and literally they had upwards of 50 pallets of barrels sat there, and he was just like, I don't know what the hell to do with them. He's like,
sweet. So
in
just
2 months' time, he's like, I'm just going to chuck them in a field and burn the lot of them because I can't get rid of them. Like, but just make sure, don't just turn up and take barrels. Make sure you talk to them and establish that they're barrels that you can take. Because I've heard stories of someone taking like a couple of sherry barrels that are £1,000 each, and they were not happy. But yeah.
But I think for us, it's just as a home brewer, it's probably too many. You need to get a few of you in together if you're going to go fill a whiskey barrel. To be fair, like I've heard stories of that, but
And what's that? 190 litres in a typical whiskey barrel?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, you need a decent gang of people contributing to that, don't you?
Yeah, it's been a lot of home brewers.
I mean, it's possible.
It has been done though. I know there are people.
Yeah,
and
and there are some. There's definitely 1 or 2 clubs in the UK that I've heard of where they just, 5 of them turn up and brew 20 litres each, or over 2 days. It is doable, and then they basically turn up 3 months, 4 months later. They then pull off their portion each, and then brew and refill it, and then take it away and do whatever they want with it, and come back. And so it does happen. But yeah, just don't ever pay for Scotch barrels at the moment because of. I mean, I saw Macallan were trying to sell me some this week for 450 quid a barrel. I was like, nope, not a chance in hell. But yeah, so just be mindful.
What was your response? No thanks, I'll have them for free.
Yeah, I had Glenn Fiddick as well. Glenn Fiddick tried to sell me some barrels, and I said the only thing I'll take off you is your marrying tons because of you can't buy those. Like they're 10 to 20 hectolitres each. They're a specific barrel that only they use. So I was like, I'll take one of those if you're selling one of those. And they're like, we're not selling them. I was like, no. They're like, oh, we got these other barrels for 250 quid. No. But yeah. There is, I'm pretty sure there is places you can buy 1 or 2 barrels from at a time though, if you need to.
So Dan, you talked a bit about the surface to liquid contact on a smaller barrel. I know a lot of homebrewers, including myself, have used staves or oak blocks or spirals or whatever, try and get that oak character in.
Yep.
What have you experimented with that much in your
I have
experience? Any advice?
I was mainly using it not for the wood flavour, but as a way of keeping a yeast culture alive.
Okay.
So I had some, I think there must have been ex-bourbon on the first run. So I think the first time I used them, I put an Imperial Stout over them, just to try and strip out most of the flavour. And so then by second and third run, most of the bourbon flavour had gone, but then they were just sitting in the bottom of the tank, and then I'd kind of run them around a bit and pick them out and put them into a plastic bag, and then clean the tank. And then when I pitched the next brew in, I'd put the yeasty wood back in. I wouldn't worry about barrel character as a home brewer. I think it's completely possible to make great mixed fermentation beers that don't ever see a barrel, and there are quite a few of our beers that. I'll just see if this Bramble does. Yeah, so this the Dar Bramble hasn't seen a barrel at any point in its life, and there's quite a few of ours regularly that don't see barrels. You don't need oak. It's cool if you can get it, but most of the reason I'm using the oak isn't because it's oak, but because it tastes like Chardonnay, or because it tastes like cherry brandy, or because it tastes like apple brandy. Which, I mean, you guys can probably just grog the beer to an extent. I'm not allowed to do that. That's against the law here. I would have to then start paying spirit duty on everything that I produce. So I don't grog. I have to use barrels by the nature of the law
to get the flavour.
Yeah,
we could just
exactly.
pour it in.
Okay. Whereas you guys can just grog. But yeah, so I wouldn't stress too much about oak. If you've got spirals and you want to give them a go ahead, but just be mindful, just be wary of pulling them out when the flavor gets to the right point. Because of even with spirals and stuff, you're still going to have a huge surface area with those wood. And after using them 3 or 4 times, don't be afraid to burn them a bit and get the char back on them if you want that character. So, but yeah, I wouldn't stress about oak myself. I just
that's cool. Yeah. Get 4 demijohns and start experimenting that way.
Exactly.
I'll tell you what, I'm kicking myself because when I moved into this house,
you threw them out
8 years ago, the dude
whole bunch
was
of
a
demijohns
winemaker,
in the garage, right?
And he left loads of demijohns. I reckon he must have left 20 demijohns in the garage. And I thought, what the fuck? Like, they're supposed to take everything out of the house, right?
Yeah.
So I'm pissed that he's just left all this, what I thought was crap. I ended up selling them all. And then, like, later on, end up, like, a couple of years later, getting to homebrew. And like, now I'm thinking, shit, I wish I'd kept those, man. That would have
Missed opportunity.
Never mind. I reckon I probably sold them so cheap as well.
I just can't be arsed with see try to do the whole what do you call it, the siphon them and all that. I just love having a tap that you just open up and you can just drain. You don't need to bloody.
It's not so bad when it's only
siphons.
a gallon of it, though, isn't it?
I mean,
could be worse.
So we siphon all our samples out the barrels. See, I don't believe in nails. Nails just wind me up. Because they're just such a pain in the ass to deal with because of
Are you not using a wine thief though?
No. I've literally got a bit of 3/8 gas line.
Have you? Yeah.
Stick it in the top and just suck it out, and then
Okay.
Most of the time it's just me blending anyway, so it's just like, it doesn't matter if it's got a bit of
bit of Dan.
Yeah, a bit of Dan on it. But yeah, barrels for me because it's one of the whole. There's a whole scaremongering thing that happened with mixed ferm, and we haven't spoken about it, but pellicles are quite common in mixed ferm as well. People often mistake them for mold. They're basically the yeast and bacteria in the beer often congregates at the surface of the beer. We don't fully. There's no hard science explanation as to why they do it. The belief is that yeast and bacteria is trying to scavenge oxygen, and the place with the most oxygen is the surface of the beer. So they float to the top to try and get oxygen, and they form these skins across the top. And you can find pictures of them online. I've got plenty on my Instagram and that sort of stuff. They all look different. They're all unique. They're like a fingerprint. You can get them with just lactobacillus, like Brett forms them. There tends to be a little bit of visual difference between the two. At least I believe there is. And yeah, there was some worry about siphoning from the top with breaking the pellicle, and then that would allow oxygen to ingress into the beer, and they thought the pellicles were protecting the beer from oxygen. I don't think they do to that great of an extent. And most of the time when you punch a hole in the pellicle, if it's a 3/8 gas line, it's a tiny hole, and it fixes itself up pretty quickly. So that was part of the reason for using nails. But for me, they're just like they're fine for the first liter that you pull off the barrel, but then you're having to let the bung out to release the pressure inside the barrel, and then you're letting air in anyway. So it's just like, what's the difference? There isn't a difference really. It's just way more practical, just sucking it out the top. But,
I'm with you. I heard a dude talking about a particular bacteria that converts ethanol to water and CO2. Have you ever come across something like that?
So Acetobacter will sort of do that, but it'll be acetic acid as the byproduct.
Right. So it's like basically vinegar.
Yeah. So one of the ones we had that turned to vinegar, for some reason I hadn't tried it. I just ran it through our alcohol testing kit, and it was meant to be like 7.5%, and it came back as 1.2, and I was like, what? I was like, oh, I've messed that up. So I went and got another sample, reran it, it was 1.2. I was just like, huh? I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And so I was looking at the notes. At no point did I think to like just taste it. And then when eventually I did taste it, I was like, oh, it's turned to vinegar. That's why it's because literally the Acetobacter will just eat through the ethanol and convert it to acids. So that's what happened to that. That's how I found our first vinegar barrel. But yeah.
You're thinking the pH meter's broken or something.
Yeah, I was just I thought the alcohol meter had gone bust, and I was just like calibrating it, and I was just no point did my brain go taste it.
Oh yeah,
awesome. Andy mentioned earlier about Solera systems. I don't know, Andy, Dandy, you briefly explained earlier Dan, about what a Solera is, but just for our audience, what's the technique of a Solera?
So they originate in Jerez in Spain, in the sherry industry. So the sherry industry tend to work on 500-litre butts. They have basically barrels racked up 3 high on top of each other. And the basic principle is that the stuff in the bottom is classified as year 3, stuff in the middle, year 2, stuff on the top, year 1. So when they come to package sherry, like Tio Pepe is a good example, they empty half of the bottom layer of barrels year 3. They take 50% of the barrel out. That then becomes the release of sherry for that year. They then take 50% out of year 2, the second row, and put it into year 3. Then take 50% out of year 1 and put it into year 2. And then the new wine they make that year goes into year 1. So the whole idea basically is you're blending between the years, and you should then form a consistency because of you're constantly getting a mix. And so theoretically, in year 3, it's not just 3-year-old sherry. It could be hundreds of years old because of potentially is left a little bit behind. So it's meant to help with consistency. That's why they do it.
From brewing, Dan, from what I'd heard prior was that basically you've got a barrel that you take so for me it's a 30-litre barrel, and then what I do is I take 20 litres off that into for myself, and then what you do is you then refill on top of the 10 litres that are left, and then that's your next year's. So tend to like once a year do a brew, and then it just goes in. So you take off what you and then there's always that little bit kind of left, that 10 litres to mix in.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a Solera, but
yeah.
It's like a simplified Solera if you've only got 1 barrel.
Yeah, instead of 3 barrels. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just effectively repitching, because the sherry barrels aren't really doing any fermentation. It's more a storage thing and aging. But yeah, I mean, we repitch onto Easter eggs quite a bit. I need to do some brewing in the next couple of weeks. One will go through primary fermentation as per normal, and the second one probably go straight on some Easter eggs because I don't have enough tank space to do 2 brews too close together. But yeah, occasionally, like we sort of wing it a bit. It's a bit of I'm still. I'd say about 85% of my time is in Origins and 15% of the time is in the main brewery. So I go over there and do kind of holiday cover or sick cover for those guys. So I'm still racking Castle Yale on a regular basis.
Do they have to like
Yeah.
decontaminate you before you go in the main brewery, Dan?
I've got
the bugs
got
you might bring with you.
yeah. Our technical brewer is German. She does not like me wearing my Origins boots in the main brewery. Like,
I bet.
and it's also because they're covered in mud from the bloody fruit garden as well, which doesn't help. But yeah,
Fair play.
but they're not super strict, and realistically, the risk from me moving between the breweries is actually quite small.
Yeah.
A friend did a study on. He went out and worked with a brewery that was doing mixed fermentation and clean beer on the same site, and they couldn't work out why they kept getting cross contamination. And like they had separate hoses, separate pumps, separate everything, and they couldn't work out why it was happening. And it turns out it was actually the fact that their malt storage and auger wasn't in a contained room. It was actually the malt dust that was causing the infections, not the mixed fermentation.
Oh, the lacto of the malt dust.
Yeah. So that was the infection point. And the minute they put a room around that area and sealed it in, the infections disappeared overnight. So it's at Pastore. We used the same pumps and hoses and occasionally tanks for the mixed firm stuff as we did the non-mixed firm stuff. Never had a problem. Touch wood. As long as your cleaning regimes are good, it's not a problem. Some people get it in their heads that like Brettanomyces is this impervious, like, kind of crazy thing that can survive in nuclear apocalypse, and it's like it's not. It's yeast. And if in doubt, the easiest way to clean kit is just to. So people go, oh, you can't use plastic for mixed firm because you scratch it, and then there's sites that you can't see that you can't clean properly. Literally get your brew kettle, boil water, let it get down to 95 degrees C, fill the fermenter full of hot water. Nothing will survive you heating it up to 95 degrees C. And we had Bell Saison caused me some big infection risks at one of the breweries, and the way we solved it was we literally just dumped the hot liquor tank straight into the whole tank, made sure there's no air spaces by bleeding all the fittings, and just purged it, left it overnight, pumped it back into hot liquor tank, never had a problem with it again. Just kill it with fire, basically.
My local brewery are super paranoid about having anything remotely funky in their brew house. So like we've done a few homebrew competitions with them. They're like, you can't use anything that's STA positive or whatever. We won't even have it in the brew house. So
yeah, STA positives cause me more issues than Brett has.
Right.
In my history of doing stuff. But I can understand it from a commercial perspective, because if you don't want
I mean, to be
downtime,
fair, it would be a major problem for them if they missed out on a few days of brewing. Would be pretty catastrophic for them to clean
especially
it all out.
If you can as well. If you can a beer and it's got something going on and it continues to ferment the can.
Well, they run like a 24-hour like brewing schedule, so obviously if you have a day out of that, it's kind of fucked your production for a lot of pubs, basically, because it's the Brew Point place that obviously supplies all the Charles Wells pubs out of that brewery. But anyway, can we talk about this beer before I drink it all, because it's it's going pretty quick.
I've started on this one.
And it does kind of lead us into some of the questions that are coming up as far as the use of the fruit in beer as well. So we've got a few questions on basically sort of like what sort of quantities you're using when it goes into the beer and all that sort of stuff. But before we dig into that, I just want to say I really like this one. It's you mentioned earlier about sort of expressing the true sort of like tart, sour kind of character of fruit, and I think this definitely does that as far as that sort of really nice sort of bright blackberry and raspberry it's got in it, hasn't it? So I really like this. This is beautiful.
Scotch.
The aroma of the fruit is insane.
Yeah, so fruit wise, it depends on the brew. So as I mentioned earlier, that the Nadar series is basically our core range. All of the fruit that we use in the Nadar series is IQF, which is individually quick frozen, I think is what that stands for. So it's frozen, like flash frozen, and it's all individual pre-cut, so I don't have to fuck around cutting stuff up, which is nice. We get it from a Scottish supplier, so all the Nadar stuff always uses. Wait, that's not quite true. Most of the Nadar stuff uses Scottish fruit. There is some exceptions, so like Nadar rhubarb uses oranges in it, but those oranges are left over from Fyne Fest, which is the big festival we do here every year. So although they're not Scottish, they're kind of waste. So we kind
I
of
was
ignore
going to
that.
see if I could tap you up for some tickets, Dan.
Fyne Fest is well worth going to. I didn't realize the scale of it when I'd heard of it before I started here, but
Yeah.
I hadn't no one had really kind of clued me into it at all. And then the first week, it's because I'm literally the first house on the road as you're coming up to the brewery. So the first week it was going on, I was like, what the hell's happening now? Like, I was like, this is just for a beer festival. They're like, yeah. And then the main stage, it's got speakers hanging from the ceiling of this tent, and it's just, it's obscene. It's just, it's 2,500 people, I think. And there's the main bar has 60 draft lines on it. We've got an Origins bar that's got like 10 draft lines on it. There's another bar with another 15 draft lines. It's
like camping on it. It's like 2 or 3 days or something like that, camping.
Yeah, so it's
or Thursday you can get
Thursday
early.
to Sunday, I think. It is. I forget because I'm always here. But yeah, so it's caravan friendly camping. They've got glamping tents if you want to hire those.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth coming to once, if anything, just to see.
I was trying to convince the boys to go because Ross and Dale, we were talking about it last night actually, and he says, "Oh, see if Dan will get some tickets."
3-day piss up.
Yeah. No,
But yeah, it's unlike any other beer festival in this country, and I'd say even internationally, there's not many other festivals like it. It's just
Just popped a link to that into the chat for anyone who's interested. So go and have a.
It's just a case of making sure the weather's all right. It's not pissing it for 3 days.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, yeah, it's not too bad. It's just the midges. The midges are the problem.
If you watch the promotional video, it looks like it's like a cracking sunny Scottish day.
I mean, to be fair,
in the river and stuff.
Yeah, so it's been
sunshine guaranteed. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm on my second or my third. It might be my second. The first one we had was like heat wave, and we had people like getting too drunk, and the problem with when it's sunny, people actually don't drink as much. So we kind of want it to rain, and then people drink more.
Yeah.
And the rain keeps the midges down a bit as well. So that's just the
midges is a real thing then up there. Where
Berdana's, big time. Yeah. It's horrendous.
Swarms of them.
The first summer I was up here, I was picking in the fruit garden, and all our gooseberry plants are really low. So I was picking the gooseberries, and it got to like 6 o'clock, and I was like, "Why is it so dark? Like it's summer up in the north, like it shouldn't be dark." And I stood up and was like, "It's not dark up here." And I looked down, it's just a sea of midges just down. They literally cloud your vision. Like they're that dense in some parts. But we've had 2 good frosts this year, so they shouldn't be that bad this year. He says.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, last year we didn't have any good frost, and so they were horrendous last year. And somehow they find a way into our house every year, and I don't know where the hell they come in, but they come in, and you can just feel them at night, just buzzing around. It's unpleasant.
And they bite as well, don't they?
And it itches like fuck.
Yeah.
And they will cover you as well. They won't just bite once; they'll just destroy you.
Yeah. My missus, she comes out in like hundreds of big spots and swells and all that from them. Whereas I'm all right that way, but I prefer if I'm going on holiday in Scotland, like I'll head up the east coast. If we're camping, that is, we'll go all that sort of St Andrews and that sort of area, like because there's very little up in the east coast, whereas west coast it's like oof.
But the benefit of the West Coast is if you get good wind, they don't appear on windy days, which is then. So they're not always about. It's just the really nice days that you want to be outside. That's when they're there.
And May is early enough where you don't. Early in the season, they're not there. But like June,
they're not.
July.
They're not too bad in May. But I'm not going to say they're not here because of
this.
just being completely open about the
Yeah.
Midge update. But
The
yeah.
Midgie scenario.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I say, we've
Amazing.
had 2 good frosts this year, so and we've had snow, so that normally kills them in the winter, which then knocks them back for a year. It's when we don't have the frost that they become a problem. But yeah,
So what's I think Tricky started on the discussion around this beer.
Yeah, we went off on a bit of a
Yeah,
tangent.
sorry,
didn't
yeah,
we?
Yeah,
But,
picking
it's my bad.
how far did we get into the use of fruit?
No, it was picking the fruit.
We had flash frozen fruit, didn't we? And then
yeah, so it's all frozen, and it tends to give out 2 months on the fruit. So this, I've got the brew sheet up in front of me now. This was a 450-liter batch, and it used 60 kilos of fruit, 20 kilos of raspberries, 40 kilos of blackberries, as a rough idea. Crow Tag, which was the first beer we tried, was a 490-liter batch, and that was 20 kilos of quick frozen pineapple, 40 kilos of quick frozen peach, and then 250 grams each of dried honeysuckle and dried linden flowers. Q had no extras in it. Lonag, or Lonak, I should say, which is the next one, was all foraged, and so I didn't quite make as many notes as I should have done as to how much went into that, but yeah, it was just whatever I could pick went in.
Yeah. Brett's got a question. He says favorite fruit combo. He's saying raspberry and rhubarb is his.
I don't know if I've got one particularly. I'm just because of the chimeras, I'm just going off on these weird tangents of going overly detailed. The one we're packaging next to package that's in tank at the moment. Let's have a look, see what's in that. So that is a mixture of honeydew melon, quince, which are both fresh, dried marigold, dried lemon verbena, dried borage, and dried cubeb peppercorns, and that's tasting amazing. The quince has blown me away this year. It was such a good year for it, and I think it's just such an underrated ingredient. It's sort of like cooking pears is maybe the closest thing I can compare them to.
It was a bumper year, wasn't it?
Yeah, they're way more aromatic, and they got dropped off by our guy that goes to Glasgow Market, and you could smell them from about 30 foot away. No joke, they're that aromatic, but they're absolute buggers to cut up because quince are like rock solid, and it just absolutely killed my hands cutting them up. And it was only like 20 kilos I did, and it's still just like, yeah, it was just trying to chop them, and I ended up getting a bloody axe out. Just
Really? That hard? You
Yeah.
need like a machete or a
yeah, you want to proper
axe.
fucking-
Proper axe, yeah.
crikey.
Sweet.
Sweet.
But well worth it. They're just so floral and aromatic, and so yeah, quince is definitely up there in my new favorite fruits.
There you go.
Nice. So what's your kind of, so you typically always kind of put them on fruit for a couple of months then? Is that,
Yep.
is that your sort of preferred contact time?
Yep. And
Is
we
it-
try and use whole fruit. I don't use purees.
Yeah.
Because of, especially with something like raspberry and blackberry, the seeds add so much character to the beer.
Yeah.
And it makes it taste like a fruit rather than just tasting like a kind of dessert or something. We're not aiming for desserts. We're aiming for beers that taste like the fruit that is on the label. But yeah, and this has got a fair. This is no, Seiko's got barrel contacts. But yeah, there's some acetic beer that got blended into this just to kind of lift it a bit. But yeah.
Yeah, well, in this particular beer, there's a bit of
Yeah.
acetic beer. Is there? I was going to say I was kind of picking up a bit of acetic character in the beer, and then I was like, yeah, a bit confused as to where that was coming from. So that clarifies it. Yeah, is there a particular reason why you opt for 2 months? Is that say the kind of the yeast can do its thing in terms of the sort of slightly slower bacteria's
Yeah,
eating
so
away at the
it's
fruit and stuff.
if you leave it too long, you can get astringency
Right.
from the seeds and stuff like that because we're using whole fruit. So or you can over extract tannins from the skins. So it's the balance between letting it fully ferment out and avoiding getting too many tannins or astringency from the seeds. That's
Okay.
seems to be the golden rule, but some stuff gets left longer. So the one we're packaging next week has been on the fruit since August. So it's had significantly longer than it's had 4 months as opposed to the usual 2. So I don't have any hard and fast rules really because of it varies so much based on the beers. So yeah, this Nadar Bramble got 2 months. Crow Tag got 2 months, and there's only 1 month on the dried herbs. So yeah, it just varies based on.
It's tasting.
You're just sort of tasting the stuff as you go along and kind of making a judgment call.
How are you taking that off? Is it in like tea bags, like big bags or whatever, like, and you're pulling it back out?
So the fruiting happens in giant plastic conicals. I've got 500-litre plastic conical tanks and 1,000-litre plastic conical tanks, and I've literally just got. I've got like a coarse filter that's from an inside of a candle filter that I ram down into the fruit. I've then got a barrel racking cane that I stick a stainless steel scrubby over the end of and cable tie it on. And so I put that over the end, put that inside the coarse filter. The coarse filter keeps out any whole raspberries or blackberries, and then the scrubby just takes off any other kind of bigger chunks.
Yeah.
So we do get sediment, and you can see like the beers aren't perfectly bright here, but that doesn't bother me.
No.
And a lot of the finer sediment will settle out in the bottles as well, so it's not a problem most of the time. But yeah, so it's easy enough to do. When I was doing it at home, I was doing the same thing. I was just sticking a stainless steel scrubby over the end of the siphon, and that was sorting out most of the problems. But because I think they were previously filtering through paper filters before I started, but there's hassle and there's more risk for introducing oxygen. Whereas if you can just pull it off in one movement, then there's less risk of introducing oxygen or failure points or leaks or just try and keep it as simple as possible all the way through. There's adding pieces of equipment is nice because it can help bits, but every time you add a piece of equipment, you're adding risk of oxygenation, infection, another bit of things, something else to clean. It may filter hops out a bit better than not using it, but it's like, but is it worth the risk? Basically, is what you've got to kind of look at. But yeah, I've been to a few breweries and seen how they work, and I'm just, why are you doing this? Just take out half of the scrap and just chuck some findings in it. Yeah.
Yes, I suppose so.
Yeah.
So, Dan, I'm just pouring the last beer that we're planning on drinking.
The Lonag
on the
Lonag.
actual podcast. The Lonag.
Have you tasted it yet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's different as well.
From smelling it just from the bottle.
It is so different to the rest
I was
we've had tonight.
trying to place what the aroma is off of it, and it reminds me a bit of like slightly funky ciders.
It's so cool. It's
almost.
Does it have some apple in it?
There is some apples in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost as a kind of, don't shoot me for this, Dan, like a sulfur note.
I get almonds off it, very slightly.
Nutty.
So yeah, but I get a lot of coconut off the actual flavour. So it's a collaboration we did with Balance, who are in Manchester. So I don't know if they are. Possibly they're the only other brewery that's 100% mixed fermentation like we are. But yeah, so it basically started with I pulled some
That's
beer into one of the
coconut,
fruiting tanks, and every morning on my walk to work, I would just took a bag, I've got like an old malt sack. I just took that with me, and I just picked flowers and just chucked them in the bag as I was going to back and forth to work. So everything that's in this beer is foraged within like a mile of or 2 miles of the brewery. And yeah, so it's got spruce tips in it. So the first thing that went in was spruce tips. I really love spruce tips. The point where I've reached out to down the road from us, we've got Benmore Gardens, which is part of the Edinburgh Botanical Gardens group. And they've got the largest collection of spruce in the world. So at some point in the next month, I've got to go to Benmore and try through their collection of spruce. And I'm going to make a spruce beer with them, which is the weirdest collab ever. But it's just, trying things and talking to people that aren't in the beer world to see whether we can come up with something new and interesting. And then the next thing that went in was hawthorn flowers. So hawthorn flowers are actually toxic if you eat too many of them, because of the reason it tastes of almond is because it's the cyanide precursors.
Oh, nice.
An
obvious choice for a beer.
But yeah, you've got to eat like 4 trees worth of hawthorn flowers.
We should be all right then.
Poison, so yeah, you should be good. And then gorse went in. So gorse for me has quite distinct like lemon aroma to it, but on the taste, I get this kind of lemon coconut thing. So the back end of this beer is like that coconut element is the gorse flowers.
Yeah.
Then I think elderflower went in, which is kind of your classic.
Yeah.
What most people know what elderflower smells like. There's rhubarb from the fruit garden, and then there's pineapple weed in there as well. So pineapple weed is wild chamomile. So it's kind of like chamomile, but more funky and pineapple-y and a bit more interesting. And then some apples in there as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting like coconut on the beer. Also like that almond. I'm kind of getting marzipan.
Well, it's made of almonds, so yeah.
Yeah. And I know what you mean about the elderflower. So it's no wonder that's a very unique aroma.
Yeah. I think complex doesn't really do it justice, does it? It's like, it smells something different every time you go back to it.
A lot of different things going on in there, but it smells amazing.
Yeah.
Any blending with cider?
Brett's asking any blending with cider.
Yeah, so we've done the first year I was at Origins. We did a beer called how was it called? I can picture it in my head.
There's a name for it, isn't there? When you blend
is
cider.
it Graph is the style.
Yeah.
It was actually invented by Stephen King, so it didn't exist as a style before he wrote one of his books, and then he actually invented it and came up with the name. So Briac was what it was called. We did it with Lynn Cidery, who are towards Fife direction, I think they are. So the other side, they basically gave us a load of their pomace, so the pressed skins and seeds left over from the cider making process. But I aged some beer on top of those skins. It was a painful beer because they'd pressed the skins quite aggressively, and so it sucked up half of my beer. I lost to the skins, and I ended up having to repress. So I took the skins out of the fermenter and repressed them to get the beer out of the skins. So that was a bit of a nightmare. But then one of the things we started doing now is we every autumn we go down to the local village hall in Kendu, which is literally just the end of the road, and everyone brings all their apples from their gardens. We press them for them. We turn them into cider for the village. So we then come back the next year with all the cider we made from the apples we pressed as a community.
Is it September, October time sort of thing?
Yeah,
it must be October. Really.
Well, we'll just get pissed.
Yeah, and then but the deal is that I'll come and help them press and make the cider in return for keeping the skins for making beers with. So we've got some of those skins kicking about in the brewery at the moment, sat on beer. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them. Last year we still got bottles of it in 750s, and it was called, I can't remember the names anymore. Brain's gone. Atamak, which means decadent. We basically took a load of wild imperial stouts and wild porters and blended them onto apples and cinnamon. And that was the skins from the village. That was a really interesting beer, a really nice beer. We've still got some 750s of that. Not many, but still got some. And then recently, through some random croft reached out to me and said they got 500 kilos of apples that I want them. So we got the Granny Smiths, or the two different types of cookers. I think the Smiths and something else. So pressed 500 kilos of apples just on a tiny little hand press, which was took me a few days.
Yeah.
And then I've basically, in the process of blending Brie, I had one barrel that was half empty, so all those cider apples have gone into that barrel of Brie, and it's sat there. And then Matt from Ascension Cider is joining me after Fyne Fest, and we're going to taste through that barrel, and then potentially he's going to look at options and send some more cider juice up, and we'll do a little bit of blend between the two. So that's on the cards as well, but that'll be a 2027 release.
Okay.
So it's kind of a Brie cider special.
Yeah. We're doing some little experiments with Brie. I've got another one coming out in May with Matt from Pellicle, and that's using
Matt Curtis.
yeah. What
is it? Matt Curtis.
Matt Curtis. Yeah. We foraged a load of blackberries again from within like a mile of the brewery, and pineapple weed, and we aged that on Brie again, some younger stock of Brie. So that should be interesting, and that'll be launched at Fyne Fest. But yeah,
sweet.
Oh, cool. We had Matt on the podcast many
years
years
ago,
didn't we?
Yeah. It was one of the earlier guests.
He might have even been
I think he was the first.
First
Was
guest.
he?
First proper guest, yeah.
Was it not me that got him on? I think.
That was me.
Oh, was it you? That was me.
Nice try trying to take the glory there, Andy.
I know. I
No,
thought it was.
stealing my thunder. No, I met him at his book signing.
Right. Okay.
Quite a few years ago.
Was it Johnny? Maybe Johnny I got then.
Yeah, we've debated making cider, or blending cider. We've considered it, but it hasn't quite come about yet. Or beer is our thing, so we'll keep doing beer cider hybrids, but I don't know whether I'll ever do like a full cider. We've considered it.
Probably get a bigger press if you do think about doing it, Dan. By the sounds of it.
Yeah, I'm from Gloucestershire originally, so I'm from cider country, and in some ways, like, I'm kind of like, let's just leave the cider making to the cider makers, because of they've been doing it for years, and most of them there's so many good cider makers in the kind of three counties that just don't get the respect that they deserve in favor of Strongbow and all that crap. So I kind of also like, I don't want to muddy the waters and then be like, look at me, I also make cider now. But yeah, so
it's hard work, definitely. I've done it with the kind of small one. My neighbour at the back, he's got a load of apple trees, but you need to watch with the apples that you use, because like you say, the cooking apples can be really acidic sort of thing, and you don't want to be.
So the cookers we've used, because we've put them into a barrel that I know has Brett C in it, so Brett Clausanii, that can carry out malolactic fermentation. So the aggressive acidity in apples is malic acid, and it's the same. It's the same thing you get in wines. So Chardonnays are often malolactic fermentation, and it's a yeastal bacteria can actually transform the malic acid into lactic acid, which is much softer and less aggressive. So you can buy stuff that will do malolactic by itself, but a lot of Pediococcus, Lactobacillus, and Brettanomyces strains can do malolactic by themselves. So I was stressing because of obviously half a barrel full of cooking apples. We were worried about it, but it's actually really soft, given that it is cooking apples, because it's undergone that fermentation. So there are ways of dealing with it. You just got to be a bit more kind of creative.
Okay. No, cool.
I had said, I guess like by virtue of them being cooking apples, is malic acid goes through some sort of transformation by virtue of you cooking it.
Well, you just add a ton of sugar as well.
Loads of sugar definitely helps.
Yeah. there's a question about hibiscus. We only use hibiscus for flavor, not necessarily for color. So I don't notice that much of a degradation of color in the bottles. So yeah, we in Ebisc, which is one of the other beers in the pack, the hibiscus is there for its flavor, maybe partially for its color, but for the main part of it, it's there for flavor. And that beer actually has first and third use hibiscus in it. So I used hibiscus in something, racked the beer off, put new beer on top of it, and then added more hibiscus to kind of top up the hibiscus flavor. We do try and use fruit a couple of times when we use it because of A, it's expensive, and B, the flavor profile changes as well every time you use it. So this Nadar Bramble has got another beer sat on the same fruit, but then it's had more fruit added to it. So we've then added red currants, more raspberries, and we've got some spices going into it as well to try and get a more broader profile of the raspberry and blackberry character that's in the second beer. So we do reuse fruit as well. That's not unheard of. And the finance guy likes it when I do that. So
Yeah.
I bet he does.
yeah.
Yeah, because I guess the Origins brewery's not like a crazy profitable
Oh no.
business. Yeah.
So we make up, I think, I can't remember what the last stat was, but it's something like 0.9% of all the Fyne Ales liquid production is me.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware that I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without having Fyne Ales there.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's not a sustainable business model unless you have the other brewery there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. You get to do the cool shit, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, none of the other brewers on site have any interest in doing it, so they're kind of just like, no, it's your thing, you do it. But yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah.
To be fair, you're getting compared up to a bit of a giant there as well, though, right?
Yeah.
What are Fyne Ales producing on a weekly, monthly basis? Like how many hex?
They're all working in barrels because they're too old-fashioned. I can't think off the top because I've never brewed on their kit as well. I only just do racking and transfers and all the rest of it.
Mhm.
So I think that's 163, isn't it? So I can work it out roughly. On a busy week, they're doing they're probably doing about close to 50,000 liters. And I mean, they probably could do more than that if they wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Good amount.
I mean, they're not doing that every week, but yeah, they could produce a lot more beer on that site if they wanted to.
During the summer, it'll be busy because the tourism season and trying to
Yeah.
keep all the restaurants and hotels and all that stocked.
Yeah, we
Cask.
it is dairy seasonal up here. You get a big dip
Yeah.
from November onwards, which is really weird because I'm used to being down south and you get a boost in November because you get all the Christmas sales. We get a little bit of that here, but not to the extent they do down south.
Yeah.
It's interesting seeing too.
Yeah.
But it's been a bit busier this week because we've had half term, so term time makes a big difference up here. But yeah, it's nice to kind of get a few months where there's not millions of caravans blocking all the roads and tourists doing 30 miles an hour on a 60 road, and you're like, just want to get to the shop. It's a 45-minute drive. Please just get on with it. And they're just going, oh, look at the view. And you're like, fuck's sake.
Where would you go for your shop? Is it Balloch or would you go as far?
So I go down to Dunoon, Helensburgh,
to
or
Dunoon?
Oban. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aye,
So-
Helensburgh did it. Aye. Just near the Dumbarton.
No Tesco Express near you then.
No.
Nah.
there's a co-op in Inverary, but it's expensive and not very big. So
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah, that's just up the road from you.
it's 15 minutes or so.
Wild,
Cool.
wild. So a couple of closing questions just to squeeze the last out of you, Dan. I think
Yep.
a couple of questions like around what's the biggest mistake you see homebrewers making when trying to either make mixed fermentation beer or scale like a commercial mixed fermentation beer or technique down to homebrew scale.
Just time. It's just being impatient, basically.
Yeah.
That's I kind of giving you a rough idea of my time schedules, and I'm working a year ahead of finished products. It's not going to be ready in 2 weeks. And I mean, there's a lot of people being scared of pellicles and that sort of stuff. It's normally quite common as well.
Tricky.
Yeah, it's trying not to like being like, oh, is this mold? Is this mold? Is this mold? It's just like, no, it's still a pellicle. It looks the same as it did yesterday. Like, but yeah, it's just time. Time is the main thing. Just be patient with it. And it's very
curb your enthusiasm, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's the main issue. I think is time. And then I mean, some of it is then, as I say, that division of kind of you've got to be if your brews are going to take a year, you need to be smart about it, and you need to split off into those 4 smaller vessels, so you've got more experimentation. So you have the 4 different beers rather than because it's quite easy to fall out of love with it when it takes a year because of you get distracted by something else, and whereas if you're splitting stuff off, it gives you 4 opportunities to do something during the year that one brew takes. But
yeah, great advice, Dan. Is there any specific really useful tools or reference materials that you'd recommend? Anyone that wants to have a go at mixed ferm, serious go at mixed ferm?
Yeah, so you've got the Milk the Funk wiki is a really good source of information online. There is a Facebook group. It's kind of died off a bit though now compared to what it was, but it's still useful to search through that for information if you need to. There's the book American Sour Beers by Michael Tonzemire. Tonzemire. That's one of the most useful books on mixed fermentation.
Yeah.
It's somewhere on my bookcase. But yeah, that's helpful. And I mean, just you can always drop myself a message. I'm pretty sure the Balance guys will always be happy to answer questions, as long as it's not just like how do I make sour beer? As long as it's an actual kind of
technical,
a proper question that's would intrigue them or myself. Yeah, they're the main sources, and just have a go and learn. Most of what I do is completely self-taught, so it's you don't necessarily need all these resources and books. Looking up into winemaking stuff is actually quite helpful as well, because a lot of the processes I do are wine techniques or cider techniques, because you're working with fruit so closely, or working with barrels and barrel transfers. So some of that is helpful, and winemakers are working on a year schedule as well. So looking at homebrew wine stuff can help. Looking up like what do they call them? Like homemade wines where they're picking elderflower, looking at elderflower wines, even making those sort of things can help, because of it's taking you away from the kind of the idea that malt and hops is everything to working with country wines. That's what I was looking for.
It's the country wines,
yeah. Doing stuff like that on the side really helps, because it helps you to understand the fruit and look at processes that aren't standard to brewing. Even like whiskey making processes can help, because again, it's barrel management and that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's mixed ferm can drive its resources from a variety of places because of it's got such a diverse way of working. So learning about just the drinks industry in general can be really helpful, rather than just being beer.
Yeah, I think this evening's given me a deeper respect for how mixed ferm is a totally different thing to itself. It's kind of almost between beer and wine and
Yeah.
whiskey, and
yeah.
it's sort of sitting somewhere in its own realm, isn't it? Yeah, that's very cool. Any final sort of top tips for homebrewers getting into thinking about doing mixed ferms, or any proper good rules of thumb, or anything else you can think of?
I mean, I have said you can use the same equipment, but to start with, keep it separate, and just keep it simple. Don't worry about the brew house side of things too much. Don't try and turbid mash as brew number one. Don't try and use some old hops. Just keep it really simple. Basically, try and brew just a really straightforward lager recipe almost. Just do 100% extra pale, low German hop addition at the start. Aim for like 25 IBUs, and chuck some cultures at it and see what happens. Or even say you have a 20-litre batch and you don't necessarily want all 20 litres of it. Pull 5 litres off, put some Brett in it, and see what happens. Just be willing to experiment and be willing just to try stuff for the sake of it, and be willing to accept that some of it's not going to work. But yeah, you don't learn if everything goes right all the time. So,
Good point. Well, Dan, that's been some fantastic advice. I've really enjoyed the beers. Some like a really interesting variety across those 4 beers as well.
Good choice for the 4 you selected there.
Yeah, I mean the pineapple notes of Crotag, the kind of more oak forward notes of Kerr, obviously the hedgerow vibes of the Nadar Bramble, and Lanarg is I think out of the 4 actually I've probably enjoyed the Lanarg the most.
Lonak.
Or Lonak.
They do. To be fair, there is a little pronunciation on the back of the label. I did. The sales team did.
Pronunciation's been way off tonight on many counts.
But yeah, the sales team had a moan when I changed it all to Scots Gaelic and said like, "Oh, how are we going to know what to pronounce it?" So they all have them.
Well, that's useful, especially for us, humble English. But no, I've really enjoyed that final beer. It's still going.
So complex.
I think it's probably the most complex out of the 4.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Very exciting. So I really appreciate your time, Dan, and curating these beers for us. It's been a fun evening.
Yeah, it's been good to chat.
So thanks very much. Quick note to next episode. So we are going to be coming at you on Friday, March 6th. We're going to be deep diving into smoked beers. So I think 2026 appears to be the year of the smoked beer. That seems to be like a trend. Beer.
I got 2 of them.
So we're going to be joined by Rob from the Malt Miller, who we, if you didn't know, and we know, is a big fan of smoked beers. I know Andy's been delving into a bit of smoked beer action, as have I. So we'll be featuring a few of our own beers on that episode. It's going to be super fun. Dan, I don't know if you're up for hanging around for a little while. We tend to have an after party, so it'd be great if you could hang around. And I know some of the Patreons, etc., are going to come, and some of our live listeners are going to come along and probably quiz you on a variety of subjects. So just whilst I sort out the Google Meets, maybe Tricky or Andy can close up, and we'll be done.
Yep. No, it's I'll close it. Dan, absolutely amazing. I loved it. Yep. Just even for myself, who's dabbled a wee bit in mixed ferm, just getting that extra bit of knowledge now and just how deep that rabbit hole can go. and just even like how to accelerate. I thought with using the demijohns to do different things, different fruit additions. Thought that was really fascinating as well. Just that you can play with that. But yeah, just even tasting lots of the Origins beers has just been absolutely fantastic tonight. And thank you again for creating that for us and spending time with us as well. I really appreciate it. And hopefully at some point I definitely need to come back up to Fyne Ales and the Origins Brewery and hopefully try and get a wee tour around the place. But yeah,
and obviously we got Fyne Fest and all our beers are available online as well. So if you want to get bottles, you can buy them direct from the web shop. So
exactly, yeah.
And the selection pack's still up there as well, isn't it? So if anyone missed out,
So
well,
I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up for a little bit. And,
might be a few people who grab one off the back of this anyway.
Yeah, so, if you are listening and you haven't, then definitely grab the pack because it is fantastic if you want to get a good spread of different of the Origins beers. So yeah, that is episode 134 in the bag. Thanks very much. If you guys want to just say goodbye, and we'll catch you next time.
Adios.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers. Bye.